Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook Library, a sanctuary of stories where fan fictions come alive, where ancient legends echo from the East and Western worlds awaken with wonder. Settle in. Your journey begins now.
Game of Thrones Traveling Thor Chapter 21. Handsome foreigner and rude Sir Knight, how are you faring here, my dear? I assume the capital is to your liking. Cersei asked the Stark girl. If it were up to her, she would never let a primitive girl from the north marry her Joffrey, but she couldn't do anything about it. It was the king's will. Yes, your grace. Sansa, who was called over to have dinner with the queen, could do nothing but nod her head. It wasn't that she didn't like it here, but it wasn't any better than Winterfell either. She had no opinion regarding this. She only came because her father and the fat king decided to marry her off to the prince. Sansa was overjoyed, but if only the prince looked anything like Thor. She tried hard, but no matter what, she couldn't replace the image of the handsome, muscular foreigner with the prince in her mind. She got an earful from Septa Mordane for this. Don't be near that man. What if someone sees you? You're promised to the prince now, she said, while Sansa found Septa herself sneaking a few peeks at him. Good. Apparently, you're the only Stark who does. It's nice that you're adapting well. I see Joffrey is very fond of you, Cersei said with a fake, coy smile. At this, Sansa only lowered her head in shyness. Tell me about that foreigner. He's been your guard all this time, has he not? Cersei suddenly asked, taking Sansa by surprise. Your grace. Sansa stuttered. I heard from Joffrey you blushed seeing him train. Cersei's tone changed, her eyes now glaring at Sansa, making her almost shake in place. It's not like that, your grace. He was breakfasted while training when both the prince and I got there. That's why, believe me. Sansa stuttered to say anything. Of course, I believe you, dear, and within seconds, her tone changed again. Cersei returned to her fake smile. Sansa visibly relaxed at this. Her face had almost gone pale earlier. The poor girl was being played with like a toy in the queen's hands. I was once your age too. I know the allure of strong, handsome men. The queen narrowed her eyes, her words now teasing Sansa like an adult seeing through a junior's mind. Sansa stiffened again. She tried hard to suppress her upcoming blush but failed miserably as the queen reminded her how handsome Thor was. How was he? Cersei asked suddenly. Your grace. Sansa looked at her with a confused face. That man. How was he? Breakfasted? Cersei asked while taking a sip of her wine. Sansa's blush deepened. She felt like she was talking with one of her friends about boys back in Winterfell. It was a dangerous thought, even considering Cersei Lannister as a friend, but ignorance is bliss. At first, she hesitated, but seeing the queen looking at her intently, she finally spoke. He's handsome. Has strong muscles, Sansa said in a small voice. She had no idea why the queen of all people was asking her this, but she didn't want to continue this talk any longer. He's tall, and there is no fat anywhere on his body, Sansa said, thinking maybe this much was fine. I see. What more? Cersei clearly didn't think so. He has a deep voice, long blonde hair, and blue eyes. Broad shoulders with well-defined muscles. At this point, Sansa felt like she was repeating herself, already out of things to say about the prince of her dreams. What more? The queen took another sip while slowly caressing the glass like it was her lover, her eyes in a daze, but she was listening to Sansa with concentration. He has a mark on his back. Men like him often have those. They describe their victories in wars, Cersei replied while still looking at the glass in her hand. She had seen a few on Jaime too. He didn't have many, but the few he did, he often showed with pride. They were a sign of his skill in battle and his victories. Oh, how desperate she was to be in her brother's embrace now. More than 2 months, and she was almost on the verge of madness. These urges her body brought her, a woman's need. She could have any man she wanted, but not just any man was worthy of her. So she waited for the man she loved to return. But it was a hard-fought struggle as time passed. Jaime will pay when he comes back, for leaving his queen like this. No, it wasn't a wound. It was more like a birthmark. It was strange, like a spider's web or a tree's branches spreading out. Tree's branches. Cersei, who had been in a daze, suddenly looked at Sansa with confusion, like she had heard a joke. But then, her dazed expression cleared up. Sansa, my dear, could you explain that mark in more detail? Cersei asked. MC Pav, you're Esser Hugh. I asked a blond man who seemed to be preparing for the upcoming tourney. He was currently at the jousting field, measuring the field distance with his foot. Hugh didn't even look at me, just waved his hand before moving forward. I saw the man who ignored me with a little resentment, but since I was here to ask a question, I calmed myself down. Anger wouldn't do me any good here. I have some questions I want answers to. I walked up to him again and spoke, finally making him stop and look at me for the first time. I could see a little surprise on his face upon seeing me, then his eyes went to the hammer I carried. I'm sorry, Your Esser? He asked, maybe thinking I was someone important. Only now did I realize that looking good had several advantages. I'm no knight. I want to ask you some questions about. I started, but he cut me off midway. Oh, well, you see, I am one. And I'm busy, so later. He ignored me again and kept moving. Maybe a little rashness is needed to deal with his kind. I hadn't even realized my hands clenched at Mjolnir. A smile appeared on my face for some vile reason. This man here was Jon Arryn's squire and a recently promoted knight. Maybe that where his haughty attitude comes from. Knowing the plot has its advantages, I didn't needed Littlefinger's help to find him. Even after not remembering his name or his looks, I found him by just looking for Jon Arryn's squire. Ned Stark wanted to know what happened to Jon Arryn. Well, he'll get to know it, but on my terms. I'll have my revenge with whoever sent this dagger to me, but not right now. Besides, I'm not certainly who exactly sent the assassin outright, having some very strong presumptions. My main concern is about convincing Ned Stark to go back south, and perhaps the canon is not altered enough still now for me to use it for my goal. I heard you were participating in the tourney. I can't wait to see your skills in action. It's been a while since I fought someone worthy. I smiled and walked up to him once again, attracting his attention. You're in the tourney? He asked with a suspicious look on his face. I'll be taking part in both jousting and fighting after that. Though I have to say I got not much experience with jousting before, would you mind helping me out? I asked with a big smile. Just as he was about to retort and refuse, Esser Hugh felt a powerful blow at his back which almost threw him to the ground. He looked at me like I just hit him with the hammer, but as his eyes went to my hammer he realized that all did was to slam his back with my other hand. What in the seven is this strength? Hugh now felt uncomfortable seeing my left hand went from his back to his back neck, grabbing it firmly before I said, "Let get you a drink, in the name of our new friendship," I said with hearty laughter before practically dragging the man along with me to the corner, away from prying eyes. Slamming him to the wall, I grab him by the mouth. Before stomping on his toe, earning a delightful while from the man, which I of course muffled by blocking his mouth. "Do you know what you're due?" he shouted as soon as I removed my hand from his mouth, though still holding him against the wall. Aha! He let out another yell when my foot found its way to another of his toe. "You'll speak only what I want to hear, or you still have 8 more finger before I break the ones in your hands." He looked at me with pain and fear-filled eyes before nodding. "Good man, and hear people sprout nonsense about violence not being the way." Can't help but a smile appear on my face. "Unfortunately for you, my new friend, I'm not the one you have to speak to. Let get you to him first," I said before dragging the man away with me. Chapter 22. Queen's Rage. Esser Knights a Fake and Jaime the Brave. "My queen, you called for me." An old servant woman stood in front of Cersei with a frightened look on her face. She had served in the Red Keep for half of her life, and never once had she felt the dread she did now in front of the queen. "What's your name?" Cersei asked, an ugly expression on her face. "Mary, your grace." The old woman spoke with a trembling voice. "Do you remember who used to tend to me back when I was first with a child?" Cersei asked, looking at her with fire in her eyes. "Your grace, perhaps we have mistaken something." A voice attempted to interject, but a glare from Cersei shut him up. It was none other than Grand Maester Pycelle, standing there with sweat forming on his forehead. "Why, yes, your grace. Besides me, there were 2 more maids who looked after you back then," Mary replied, stuttering. She had tended to the queen back when she wasn't this old. Now, she no longer had the energy she once did, so she had been replaced by younger maids. "Call both of them here," Cersei commanded. Your Grace, they are no longer here. Mila died a few years ago. A fever took her. And as for May, she left King's Landing a long time ago. Mary spoke hesitantly, unsure why the Queen was so angry but praying to the Seven that she wasn't the target of her wrath. As soon as she finished speaking, silence spread through the room. Cersei looked at her with piercing eyes. Where? Mary didn't respond. She didn't know. Where did she go? Cersei asked again, raising her voice. I don't know, Your Grace. She didn't tell me before leaving. I don't know. Mary kept her head down, clenching her skirt, trying to look smaller. Only the Seven knew how she had found herself in this situation. For a few seconds, no response came from Cersei before she finally asked, do you recall why she would have left? Any particular reason? This time, her voice was calm. Mary immediately started recalling everything she could. Your Grace. I do recall her quitting her job here long before she left. We used to live near each other. After she left, she had no job. She struggled, and soon she had to leave the city. What more? Cersei wasn't satisfied with only this much. I can't say for sure, but there was gossip that she slept with a noble and got herself pregnant. That's why she left her job. I can't be sure, but when she left, she had a babe with her, only a few months old. Mary stuttered, recalling everything she could. Is that all? Cersei asked. I swear to the Seven, Your Grace, I don't know anything else. Mary was now trembling. The longer she stayed, the more she felt like she was in a lion's den, being stared down by a lioness. Get out. After a long pause, Cersei spoke, and Mary was happy to rush out as soon as possible. Your Grace, I think there is a misunderstanding. I myself checked. Pycelle started, but Cersei cut him off. Misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding, is it? Cersei's glare toward Pycelle became fiery. My firstborn's body is missing from its grave, and you think it's a misunderstanding? She all but roared, making Pycelle flinch. That morning, the Queen had suddenly called him, interrogating him about her firstborn. Everyone knew the Queen's firstborn hadn't survived long after birth. This was the first time in years she had even brought up the subject. She had asked to be taken to his grave. She had never done that before, never even knew where her firstborn was buried. So they had taken her. Then, strangely enough, she had wanted to dig up the grave. Even for a woman like her, this was too much. But it was the Queen's order, so they had done it, only to find the grave empty. You gave the body of my dead child to that bloody whore to bury. I want her. I don't care how. You bring her before me. If you don't, I swear, Pycelle, I'll have your head on a pike and everyone in this damn castle if I don't find out what happened to his corpse. What are you looking at? Go find out. Where is my child? Here he is. Ned Stark was startled when his study room's door opened without a prior knock, and he saw Thor drag a man in, his face covered. Who's he? Ned Stark looked at the man. Not recognizing him, he turned to Thor. Jon Arryn's squire. Recently knighted just after his death. The Seven have been kind to him. He just acquired a full-plate steel armor, castle-forged. Fits him like he was born for it. Lovely craftsmanship. Thor spoke with his usual smile, but Ned understood the implication. You were Jon's squire? Ned asked Hugh, who remained silent. He knew who stood before him, but if he opened his mouth, things would turn out badly for him. Speak. We are all friends here. No need to be shy, Thor encouraged while placing his hand behind the man's neck. Ned saw Hugh visibly flinch. He wondered what Thor had done to the man. Maybe putting him on this task wasn't the right decision, Ned thought, but soon shook his head. This was necessary, and he knew it. Tell me, what do you know about Jon's death? Ned Stark asked in a calm tone, while Thor sat a little further away, playing with his newly acquired dagger in front of Esser Hugh, just to apply more pressure. I don't know anything. He was fine that morning, and then suddenly, the fever attacked him. It all happened so fast that, Hugh was speaking when Thor threw the dagger. It missed Hugh by only a hair's length and dug into the wall. Apologies. Been a while since I used a dagger. Thought I could use some practice. What do you say, Esser Hugh? Mind helping me out? I'm sure you'd be pretty good at it. Ned Stark was about to interject, but Hugh spoke. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It had nothing to do with me. Hugh sputtered. Nothing to do with what? Ned Stark seized the opportunity. The poison. I don't know how he consumed the poison. I swear to the Seven, my lord, I am innocent. Hugh stuttered, and Thor smiled, retrieved his dagger, and left. Make sure no one sees him here. He'll be targeted soon enough. As a friend, it's my responsibility to find him safe passage out of here. Castle Black, this is madness, what are you thinking? Tyrion all but shouted, seeing his brother and probably the only family he cherished going out to give away his life. Not if it's works. Jaime shrugged with a charming smile. You'll be freezing your balls off beyond the walls, searching for those things while not even knowing how to kill them. Works or not, this is maddest. If father knew this, Tyrion trail of as he figured that if his father knew, then it's most likely all the blame will be shifted onto him. Jaime Lannister in all his wisdoms one day woke up and decided to go to North and capture a White Walker of his own. What if he knew? He won't do nothing. In fact, this is the reason why I'm going. Out there, little brother. Father won't believe this children's tale until he has a proof, and that old bear is guarding that cellar like it was a gold mine. Let alone a body part we can't even get fart from that white. Jaime said, making Tyrion shut up. Sigh. We both know Jeor Mormont not gonna let us take any part of that undead to show father. Without proof, father won't believe even if it's me telling him. Ned Stark is a fool. He thinks that the king could help him. He should have learned by now that Capsule is in Debeth. There won't be any help from the Capsule. The only three places which help North right now are Hightower, Reach, and us Lannisters. If can't convince father, then Sevens know when those undead fuckers will show up. If the wall falls, then we all are doomed. Jaime said with a little heat. You can't, we don't even know how to. Tyrion after a little while tried to convince his brother again, but Jaime shook his head. That foreigner captured one. Do you think I can't do it? Since when it's competition? Tyrion said with frustration. Do you know what will happen to me if our dear father and sister learn that I didn't do anything while you go out there to alone to die? Tyrion said with irritation. I'm not gonna die, and I'm not alone either. I got professional help. Jaime said. He was actually going out there with Benjen and few more ranger to shout the area. As for our sister and father, here, give them this, they won't cause you any trouble. He said as he tossed 2 letters at Tyrion. Sometimes I appreciate 7 choose to give me a bigger head than longer legs. Chapter 23. Another night visitor after a long day of hard work, sleep is the best. It's not just me, but Thor thinks the same, or else I wouldn't have kept enjoying sleep this much as I did back on Earth. The more time went on, the more I found myself becoming like Thor. I had this constant urge to smash something with my hammer. Strange. Maybe, but I can't deny it. I like doing it. It was very obvious that I was changing bit by bit, becoming more like Thor. In many ways, it was a good thing. To survive here, I had to be more like him, but I didn't want to be completely like him. It's already strange how I'm not making a fuss about another entity taking control of my mind, making me like him. Maybe because I have already started to consider myself like Thor. Who knows? I just hope that there is still a little bit of me left by the end. Just as sleep was very close to claiming me, I suddenly felt a presence. It was very faint, but my senses picked it up. I all but shot open my eyes and bolted up, my hands instinctively finding my hammer before I turned toward the person who was standing in the shadows, coming into my room at night. Who are you? Another royal assassin. I bolted out of bed and pointed Mjolnir at the man hiding his face in the shadows. Just 2 days ago, an assassin had come to kill me, and now here we are, another one. Cowards, all of them, killing a man in his sleep while hiding behind the shadows. I tried to control it, but my anger slightly leaked out in the way I was glaring at the man. A man has not come to grant you the blessing of the many-faced god, replied the man as he stepped out from the shadows. He looked ordinary, but if what he said was anything to go by, then no one could tell how exactly he looked. Many-faced god. Out of all the faiths in both Westeros and Essos, this one was the most dangerous. All its followers were assassins who could change faces and kill anyone for the right price. A gift is what they call it. They say it's a blessing from their god. An annoyed look appeared on my face. I didn't like this kind of underhanded way, or maybe it was Thor's influence. Only demons call killing a blessing. Yours is no god, I said with anger. A man does not question the many-faced God. A man only follows what the many-faced God asks of him, he replied in a calm tone. That was another thing annoying about them, they talked funny like this for some reason. I just shook my head and glared at him, looking around but finding no one else but him. There was no need to talk sense to him. These followers of their faith don't listen to reason. Why are you here if not to give your so-called God's gift? A request. A man is imprisoned and needs freeing. Our God lead us to you, O champion of the storm God. Assist a man, and a man shall return a life for a life. All right, that was even harder to understand than his earlier annoying talk. I pondered for a little before it finally clicked. He was talking about Jochun Hagar. But what is this nonsense about being the champion of the storm god? I have heard about the old gods, the seven, the Lord of Light, even the horse god and the drowned god that those Dothraki and those plundering Greyjoys worship, but this was my first time hearing about this new god. For the time being, I didn't bother asking about it further or denying it. I was rather interested in the offer he was talking about. A life for a life. That could help me quite a bit, though I didn't like pulling underhanded tactics like those cowards hiding in shadows. However, maybe I could ask for something else. I don't need a life, but I could use a name, I replied as I took out the dagger and showed it to him. You might not have brought any gift for me, but before you, there was one. He had a face and a dagger. Find out who sent him, and I'll think about your offer. The faceless man stood there, contemplating something before he asked, no blessing. Not even touching. You just bring the name, I'll prepare a gift for him myself. He thought a little more before finally nodding. The god will consider helping a man, if a man brings him a name, he said. Quite a reversal of roles, but it was what it was. The god. Now I was getting a little curious. How much did he know about me? The fact that he came to ask for my help was strange as it was, but maybe his talk about his god leading him wasn't a lie. You have my word. Valar Morghulis, he nodded. Valar Dohaeris, I nodded back. And just like that, he was gone. Sighing, I was ready to go back to sleep, but that was when I heard a system notification. Status Godly Body LVL1 Mjolnir LVL1 Thunder LVL1 Available Upgrade Points 1 Current Ongoing Quests Final Quest. Kill Night King. Main Quest. Winter is coming, let the North and by extension South know about the danger of White Walker. Ready North for the upcoming winter. Side quests. Wolf's Companion. Travel with Ned Stark and help him out. Protect Starks in the South. Revenge, find and kill the person who sent the assassin after you. Tourney, win the tourney and establish your valor. A man, free the faceless man from the castle dungeons. I read and grumbled under my breath. More side quests. Part of the reason I accepted participating in the tourney and hadn't acted against Joffrey yet was because of this side quest. Well, I won't deny that I wanted to fight in the tourney myself. I might have done it even if I didn't get a quest for it. The quest was just another reason I accepted it. The urge to fight in this body for me was almost like a masturbation addiction from my last world. It's hard to control, so if I get to crack some skulls and get paid for it, then it's a welcome change. The upgrade point just made it a sweeter deal. As for acting against Joffrey, well, in that case, I did hold back because of the quest. The quest states that I have to find out who sent the assassin. This was strange. The system could easily give a quest to kill Joffrey or something, but nay. Something fishy was going on. And thus I held back. Whatever. Got too much work to do tomorrow. I better get some sleep. You're sure about this, my lord? There are many eyes here, Jory asked as both he and Ned Stark came to the blacksmith's shop. Esser Hugh had given them crucial intel about what Jon Arryn was doing before he died. Out of all the people, he had come here often. So, Ned too wanted to check out why. He could have just sent Thor, but the last time he did, the man was beaten and bruised badly. Regarding the person he was about to talk to, he didn't want the same fate to befall him and thus kept Thor out of it. It was a little risky coming here. Thor had told him not to raise suspicions, but he had to know. And by the time he was done talking to the person, he was shocked and troubled. What did you find, my lord? Jory asked. King Robert's Bastard. Chapter 24. In heat, you're just a soldier, isn't it? You were never taught how to rule, Cersei spoke mockingly, seeing the man in front of her think that honor could save him. I was taught how to kill. Ned Stark didn't back down, saying it without looking away from the woman's eyes. So was I. Cersei just smiled and left the room with a flare, leaving Ned Stark even more certain that he was getting closer to unearthing something that would shake the realm. Cersei learned what Ned was up to these days from her spies. Everything was fine until Ned decided to visit Gendry at the blacksmith's shop. That's when one of her spies informed her of what was going on. Cersei was quick to figure out what Ned Stark was doing, and by no means would she let him do as he pleased. For her kids, Cersei could do anything, even if it came to killing. She would resort to it. As she came out of Ned Stark's room, a frustrated expression appeared on her face. This matter should have died with the death of Jon Arryn. Letting Robert take Stark as his hand was a mistake. She had so wanted her father to take the role, but alas, that pig of a king wouldn't listen to her. She was about to rush back to her chamber and get something nice to eat before thinking about how to deal with Ned Stark when she heard a man's voice. Usually, she wouldn't care, but she had heard this deep voice before. Only once, but she couldn't forget it even if she wanted to. Before she knew it, her legs were already moving toward where the sound came from. What she saw almost froze her on the spot. There was an incredibly handsome and muscular man doing pull-ups on some sort of makeshift rod. Barek-chested. Every time he pulled himself up, his muscles moved like mountains shifting on the surface of the earth. He was sweating. The air in the room was stuffy and hot, and his scent filled the space. Cersei gulped. Unknowingly, her legs came a little closer. No matter how she tried, she couldn't take her eyes off that strong, muscular back, which felt like every muscle was made of iron. The man was doing a strange exercise that Cersei had no knowledge of, but she couldn't care less. All she wanted now was for him not to stop. The man she was staring at was no ordinary man. Thor immediately sensed someone behind him. He didn't stop immediately because he was in the middle of a set. Sensing no harm coming his way, he continued until he finally hit 1,000 pull-ups, then dropped down. As he turned back to see who it was, he saw the queen rubbing her neck like she had a bad sore. There was sweat on her forehead, and she looked slightly dazed. "How may I help you?" Thor asked, making Cersei immediately stop her wandering hand. Good thing she had only reached for her neck and thighs. Only after hearing his voice did she realize who this person was, the foreigner. And by the seven, he was magnificent. It might have been months of sexual tension without any relief, but she felt her insides getting hot and moist. There stood a tall, muscular, handsome god of a man, topless, sweat glistening on his body, looking directly at her like she was his prey. In reality, Thor was looking at her with confusion. What was she doing here? He had no idea, but he felt like she was looking at him strangely. "The seven have blessed you with a strong body." She suddenly spoke. It felt more like a threat coming from Cersei than a compliment. Did she know about his dealings? Thor paused and thought. Not as much as they have given you beauty. Which, in Thor's eyes, meant none, as the seven had nothing to do with his powers. Do people often train like that where you come from? She asked as she slowly walked closer, her face slightly tilted to the side, staring at him. Thor just nodded, trying to figure out what she was after. If she was here, there had to be a reason. They say strong warriors have marks, while exceptional ones have none. Cersei slowly raised her hand and stroked his arm. Thor, for his part, just stood there, keeping his eyes on her, still trying to decipher her intentions. She roamed around him, looking at every inch of him until her eyes fell on something she had almost forgotten. Her mind, high on lust, settled down upon seeing the mark that had concerned her so much in recent days. Wounds are indeed a warrior's pride, a mark that they lived to tell the tale while their opponent did not. So, you're one of those exceptions, I presume. Cersei was now behind him, admiring his broad back while caressing it with her hands. When he wasn't looking, she took a deep breath of his masculine scent. Only the seven knew how much this was waking a primal fire inside her. It was getting unbearable. Her hand went up to slowly massage one of her breasts while another hand kept on tracing his back. There was heat building between her legs. She knew that with just one touch, she would be a watery mess. By the seven, she just wanted to claim him right now, order him to kneel before her, press into her until she couldn't move anymore. However, she had more important matters to sort out first. Then what about this one? She asked as she caressed the strange mark on his shoulder, reminding her of a past she never wanted to recall. Birthmark. Thor replied. He was on guard against her. Though she had no visible weapons, he wouldn't put it past Cersei to use an underhanded trick on him. At his reply, Cersei paused, hesitant to ask another question. Her mind was in turmoil, constantly putting her in conflict. She had more questions about his origins, his parents, that mark. Was there any chance that he was her son? Impossible as it may have sounded, that mark, she couldn't get it out of her mind. And yet, her body had a mind of its own. Her hands were massaging her breast while her breathing grew ragged. Her other hand was dangerously close to the junction between her legs. She knew that if she touched it, she wouldn't be able to stop herself. Why is a handsome and strong man like you here alone? You should be in the company of fair maidens. She gulped and asked while forcing herself to tear her hand out of her dress and walk back in front of him. A man who can't control his own lust will only become a beast. A real man needs no more than one woman he calls his own, to share his bed, fortune, and life. Thor replied awkwardly. He was beginning to think her motives were something else entirely. Was she beautiful? Yes. Was she fuckable? Very much so. But by Odin's beard, he would not put himself anywhere near this crazy woman, even if she were the last woman alive in the 9 realms. There was no way he was falling for this vixen's act. However, his words did more harm than good. Hearing him, a genuine smile spread across Cersei's face. This felt like a smack in her husband's face. Then maybe you should start finding that one. Don't hesitate to come over if you need any help. I'll be more than willing to provide all you need. She was now dangerously close, making Thor recoil slightly. He was very close to pushing her away. No need. I'd rather not disturb you. Thor's eyes hardened as he said this in the coldest voice he could muster. It didn't work. If anything, it excited Cersei the wrong way. She suddenly felt an imposing aura from him, and it turned her on even more. Nah. If it's you. Then, she said, her finger tracing across his chest while she bit down on her lips. Then, I'll allow it. She turned back. If Thor didn't know better, there was an extra sway in her hips as she exited the room, throwing one last sultry glance his way. Thor just stood there, his mind recalling her touch and her face. He was getting aroused. This was bad, really bad. He understood now what she was after, seduction. Why? He had no idea, but he wouldn't allow it. Train harder. Meditate more. Don't let her win, he muttered to himself. To the grind. Chapter 25. The lioness and the history text. Cersei was having one of the worst hangovers she had ever experienced. Last night, she might have given her husband a run for his throne in drinking. I ran. She covered her face with both hands, half anger building up and half irritation boiling within her. She couldn't figure out what she wanted, and she had to get away from him. Her mind told her to find his identity. That mark on his back and her dead son's missing body were too coincidental. And her body. It wanted to forget about that dead child and birth a few more with the same man she doubted to be her son. Her lion. She thought of yesterday suddenly, and a big blush uncontrollably appeared on her face, immediately followed by a scowl. Yesterday, her body had been possessed by the maiden, or else she couldn't explain how she, the queen of the 7 kingdoms and one of the fiercest players of the game, ended up acting like a bitch in heat. Batting her lashes and ready to open her legs for that man like a street whore. What madness clouded her mind, only the 7 could tell, but as she recalled the state she was in yesterday, she couldn't help but feel the heat rising inside her again. Her legs involuntarily tightened. As if acting like a lovesick fool and almost begging that man to visit her wasn't enough. At least that's what she felt it looked like. She had been indecisive about what she wanted and had gotten away from there. But not before trying her damnedest to look more appealing in front of him, thinking that her charm would make Thor stop her from leaving. Even after returning to her room, she waited, expecting him to appear. That son of a bitch never came. All night, she couldn't sleep, tossing like a fish out of water. Trying to relieve herself only caused her urges to skyrocket. No matter whether it was her own fingers, a tool, or the tongue of a servant she ordered, none could satisfy her. She needed a man. A real man. But most men were smelly orcs. Maybe Lancel, she thought. He was also a Lannister and looked a little like Jaime, but then an image of Thor's muscular, broad back came to her mind, and she compared it to Lancel. She tightened her grip on the cup as a bigger scowl formed on her face. She was the queen. She had never compromised in her life, and Castle Rock would run dry of gold before she thought about doing it now. Just as Cersei was about to ask one of the servant girls to call for Thor, she heard Joffrey making noise again. On normal days, she would treat her lion as a 2-year-old and do whatever he wanted. However, today, she wasn't interested. She heard her son shouting about some man barging into his room last night. She wasn't sure whether to believe it or not. Even she had to admit that Joffrey wasn't the best when it came to behavior, but even his lies were getting worse. I want him dead. He must be the one who sent the faceless man to kill me. Joffrey shouted in a high-pitched voice. What? She just shook her head. Joffrey didn't even know that faceless men only took assassination missions and nothing else. Sighing, she went back to her thoughts about Thor. She wanted answers about him, his background, but she no longer wished to see him again. It felt humiliating to seek him out after he hadn't come. Oh, he'll come. I'll make sure of it. Her inner lioness roared. But for now, she planned to maintain her distance, or she might get all flustered and horny around him again. Never again. Thinking about it, she had only one option. Try to gather whatever information she could through Sansa. Invite Sansa to lunch. Make sure you prepare something she likes. She ordered the same servant girl whose tongue had made her night bearable. Winterfell, no. But why? I'll be completely safe there. Mother, I have to go. I know something out there is calling me, Bran said, but even he didn't have much hope that his mother and brother would agree to let him go further north. Because it's dangerous. What are you thinking? That's not a playground, Bran, Catelyn said, irritation building up. Her second youngest hadn't been the same since waking up. Maester Luwin said it was a miracle of both the old gods and the new that the boy had woken up at all. She had much to be grateful for, but he was different. No longer running around, playing, climbing. He was calm, almost always buried in books like he had found some lost secret in them. And then, suddenly, he came up asking to go north. I'm not going there to play. I told you, I had a dream about, Bran was about to say, but Catelyn stopped him midway. You saw a three-eyed raven. So what of it? It's all because you've been reading those children's stories and history books with fantasy tales of magic. It's gotten into your head, Catelyn replied, cutting Bran off. Bran sighed. It had been hours since he had tried to change his mother's mind, but to no avail. He knew this would happen, so he turned to his brother Robb. Technically, Robb was the current warden of the North, so if he ordered it, Bran could go. However, that possibility was unlikely. And Bran was right. Robb just looked at him with amusement before turning his face away. He considered this one of his brother's many unreasonable demands. Bran wasn't like this before, but recently, things had been different with him. Mother. Enough. You'll be going back to your room and staying here. We shall discuss this no more, Catelyn said, a headache forming. The seven only knew what had happened to her child. It was almost like he had become a completely different person overnight. Bran knew better than to argue anymore and, with a dejected look, went back to his room. Just as he was making his way back, he suddenly saw a big man sitting outside with an ugly expression. He was big, not as big as Hodor, but still big enough. He had bandages wrapped around his side and chest while half of his face was burned. The Hound. Bran gulped, seeing him there. He had heard that the Hound wasn't in any condition to go back with the king's entourage to King's Landing. His wounds weren't life-threatening, but they had left him pretty hurt. As Bran looked at the Hound did the same. But just as simply, he ignored the little lord and went back to brooding. Bran's eyes went to Sandor's wounds, and he remembered the big, handsome man Sansa had been talking about non-stop. The hammer, he muttered, and this slight mutter was immediately caught by Sandor. What did you say? He asked with a little growl. Your wound. Thor did it, right? Bran gulped but asked nonetheless. He had to know. So what of it? Sandor growled even more. He didn't want to be reminded of that cursed hammer. That hammer. And the one who wielded it. Both. It had put him in bed with pain and no wine for a month. All he wanted to do right now was stay away from that man. Sandor knew, from the damage his body had suffered even with armor on, that man was no less of a monster than his older brother. He might have looked like one of those pretty rich knights, with a face prettier than most women in the Seven Kingdoms, but he was a monster. Do you remember that hammer? How it felt? Bran suddenly asked, making him even more irritated. Why do you care? Sandor asked with irritation. Bran, upon getting this question, took out the book he was carrying and started turning the pages frantically before opening one and showing it to the Hound. That's the hammer. The Hound at first just wanted to avoid the sort of kid, but seeing the almost same looking hammer in that book, his heartbeat quickened. I found it while reading about the faiths of the Westeros and Essos. It doesn't explain much, but it say, when the sea chirped and the sky crackled, that when the champion of the storm descended to slew the kraken, he called forth thunder from heavens, his hammer crack earth. He flew off one day, and then Bran read the passage with a strange look on his face. And what? The Hound, still glaring daggers at the image of the hammer, asked. A little interested at what this story was about, Bran pursed his lips and continue. Then the dance began. Chapter 26. Jousting. Thor. Here came a familiar voice, and I saw Sansa, beautifully dressed, waving her hands to call me. Ah, my lady, you shouldn't smile so graciously. What if some lord falls for that charm? The realm can't withstand another Harrenhal, I said, giving her and the scowling Septa beside her a smile before sitting beside her. Sansa's face turned bright red. The poor girl failed hard to counter the blush creeping up to her face. It's always fun to tease others, especially beautiful girls. Why should I fear anyone? I have a strong, handsome knight to protect me. You'll protect me, right, Esser Thor? Sansa pushed her blush down and asked with a coy smile. At least she tried to act like a confident young woman. It was cute but not convincing, seeing her barely looking into my eyes before the blush returned. Maybe she was trying to model after the queen. She's spending an awfully long time with her lately. This kind of makes me worry a little about her. I'm no knight, but rest assured, as long as I am here, no harm shall come to you. You have my word, I said with a little smile, to which the girl blushed and put her head down, avoiding my eyes. I avoided the glare the Septa was throwing at me, Arya on the side sneakily trying to lift Mjolnir and failing hard, and looked away to where both the king and queen were seated. But the moment I looked there, both my eyes and Cersei's connected. She was looking directly at me. I was trying to maintain a low profile, and yet she found me. What is she up to? I tried keeping tabs on her after that day but couldn't find much besides that recently she made a big fuss about something. It's been days. Start the damn tourney already before I piss myself, shouted King Robert, who sat beside her with a cup of wine in his hand, face completely flushed. I really don't know what these people were thinking, making him the king of all people. I could only blame the Westerosi people and their infatuation with bloodlines. Father, in this case, was correct. Most men are retarded. Damn, now I'm even calling him my father. Our memories are mixing to the point I can't distinguish between which ones were mine and which were given to me. Oh well, there is no reason to think about it anymore. I'm Thor now anyway. Back to Robert, he became the king not because he won the war. He wasn't the only faction in the war, nor was he the one leading the rebellion mainly. He became king because somewhere in the past, his ancestor married a Targaryen, giving him a few drops of dragon's blood, for which people in this continent are ready to bow down and lick his foot. Ned Stark would have been a better king. Not very good at the game and highly vulnerable without much power in the south or alliances for that matter, but a good king nonetheless. I wonder if I ever go to the MCU, could I become the king of Asgard? I couldn't help but muse. After a long wait, finally, the day of the tourney arrived. My hands felt like itching to crack open some skulls. This was the primal warrior urge inherited by Thor. However, it turns out that the first part of the tourney was jousting. Upon the king's call, two people came forward. Both were knights who I didn't know, wearing handsome armor and sitting on top of their steeds with long lances in their arms, ready to start jousting. I had no interest in that. It was nothing but a ridiculous performance for the audience, not a real battle. I didn't even have any memories of Thor doing jousting. Fortune was on my side that I wasn't in this part of the tournament. Earlier, I said I was taking part in jousting to Esser Hugh just because I wanted to grab his attention, but no, I wouldn't have done it even if that fat king ordered me to do it. As for Esser Hugh, my friend wasn't part of this tourney after hearing my potent advice about the potential danger to his life. There are people already looking for him in King's Landing. Surely Cersei didn't want to leave behind loose ends after knowing Ned Stark was digging into the credibility of her children. I told that fool not to expose himself, but Honorable Eddard Stark doesn't fear anything. He went behind my back and let Cersei know what he was up to. Now he was a target. I had Hugh hidden for the time being. I can't say whether the mountain killing Hugh in the show was an accident or a planned assassination, but I didn't want to take any chances. I still have a use for my friend after all. As I thought about Cersei, I slowly tilted my head to see she was still looking in my direction. Odin knows what was going on inside the head of that vile woman now. Seduction didn't work on me, so what's she gonna do next, huh? While I was distracted, the first jousting match ended. One of the knights was dismounted on the first run. I still don't see the appeal of these games, but hearing the claps from others, I'd say this world seriously needs some entertainment options. A new pair of knights came forward, and finally, I knew this one. A man in white armor rode on his horse, holding a red rose, which he carried all the way towards us and gave to Sansa. Flower Knight. That's what they call them here, a term mostly used for knights who have never seen real war and mostly show off. This identity has long been attached to the Knights of the Reach. The man gave me a look. I couldn't recall who this person was, but I saw him staring at me a little longer than I was comfortable with before he turned back. What is that? Arya suddenly pointed in the other direction. I saw a big man riding a horse in complete black armor. He was big, even bigger than me, and I was 6 feet 2 inches. He looked almost 7 feet. That's Esser Gregor Clegane, also known as the Mountain Who Rides. A voice came from the side, and then I saw one of the most dangerous men in this game. Peter Bale. Why do they call you Littlefinger? Arya was faster to address him. Arya. Both Sansa and the Septa chided. Don't be rude. I don't mind at all. I was very small when I was a child, and I came from a small place called the Fingers. So, you see, it's an exceedingly clear nickname, Baelish addressed. It's even more remarkable that you raised your station despite your birth, I said, drawing his attention away from both Sansa and Arya. This man was one of the most dangerous players of the game, so much so that I wouldn't mind killing him even if I had no other reason besides saving myself from the future chaos he could bring. Ah, you must be Thor. It's a pleasure. I just returned the greeting and then avoided him. He reminded me too much of Loki. I heard Littlefinger explaining how the Flower Knight, whose name was Loras Tyrell, was cheating. His steed was a mare and in heat. It was affecting Gregor's horse. I don't quite remember this small bit of information from the show, but I do remember the Tyrell name. Marjorie Tyrell was his little sister. Interesting. The first and second runs both were not good for the Mountain. His horse was giving him trouble, and on the last run, Loras was dismounted him. In anger, Gregor cut open his own horse's neck. Power without restraint. Not a warrior but a berserker. I just shook my head. I knew he was despicable, but losing control of his own emotions like this in the open was too much. But then something even more ridiculous happened. He went on to attack Loras. The crowd started to make noise and shout for help. Someone to save Loras. I remember this from the TV show. Shouldn't Sandor be here too? Oh. Chapter 27. Break the Mountain. Clang. Gregor almost felt his sword being torn from his grip. The impact of whatever had struck his blade was immense, making him stagger 2 steps back. His hands felt slightly numb, and he was sure that if he hadn't been holding on tightly enough, the sword would have flown out of his grasp. Seems like the knightly code is lost on you. Attacking from behind, even if it's an enemy, is considered dishonorable, let alone in a friendly competition such as this, I said as I raised Mjolnir towards the Mountain, who looked at me with a mix of shock and disbelief. No, you must save Thor, or the Mountain will kill him. Sansa turned to her father, who had just recently arrived and sat beside her. Grabbing onto his arm, she pleaded desperately. Hey, it's fine. Ned Stark looked at his daughter with a complicated expression, then turned his gaze to Thor. Maybe letting this handsome man guard his daughters wasn't the best idea. Both Cersei and Robert, watching from the side, were intrigued by the fight. Robert, more than anyone, wanted to see Thor in action. Cersei, too, but for entirely different reasons. Other lords and ladies who had seen Thor for the first time murmured among themselves. Is he a Lannister? 7 hells, he's handsome. Did I see that correctly? He pushed back Gregor. The mountain took a few seconds to regain his balance, but his anger only grew. Gripping his greatsword tightly, he charged at the man who had dared to stop him. Seeing the brute force attack coming, I easily predicted its trajectory and dodged with ease. All that training, trying to adapt to Thor's fighting style, had done me a lot of good. Surrender now, and you have my word that you won't be harmed, I said casually, effortlessly fidgeting with Mjolnir in my hand like it was a toy. When no reply came and he launched another attack, I sighed. Very well, you don't have my word. Honestly, I had been hoping for this outcome. Get out of here, I told the Flower Knight before turning back to Gregor, who was already swinging at me. Gregor was strong, but he lacked the agility of other knights. As his greatsword came down, I swung Mjolnir back, colliding the hammer directly against his blade once again. Clang! The sound of iron striking iron rang out, sparks flew, and just like that, Gregor's attack was not only blocked but he was once again thrown off balance by the sheer force of the impact. I, on the other hand, barely felt the blow, holding the heavier weapon. Taking advantage of the opening when his front was mostly exposed, I moved in with lightning-fast reflexes and raised my leg. Ha! A powerful Spartan kick sent Gregor tumbling backward until he lost his balance entirely and fell to the ground. A slight dent was visible on his armor where I had struck him. I'd advise you to stay down. You're only unharmed because I wanted to test that kick on someone. Or perhaps you're still alive because you're wearing armor. I said with a little smile. I had really wanted to try that out after last time, when the Hound had wanted to do the same to him. He had dodged, of course, but the Hound's brother wasn't as lucky. By the 7, did you see that? Who is that man? He looks like a Lannister. But even for Lannister standards, he's handsome. Ned Stark watched with a complicated look on his face. He didn't mind Thor being that strong. In fact, he was relieved to have someone that capable guarding his daughters. However, there was also the fact that Thor was the only person to have fought an undead. He had said it was easy enough, and now Ned was beginning to understand why, and that wasn't good for the realm. Not everyone is Thor after all. Will North survive? Ha 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 ha. I knew that lad was a warrior. Oh, you should have seen me when I was his age, cracking skulls and fucking whores. I would have broken that mountain with a single strike. Ha ha ha. King Robert, instead of stopping the fight, ended up laughing heartily. Cersei, on the side, kept her eyes locked on Thor, refusing to blink. Her mouth was slightly parted, and her lower lip slipped between her teeth. Good. No one was paying attention to her. It was becoming unbearable to suppress these urges now. Once again, the crowd broke into murmurs at the incredible feat Thor had accomplished. To throw the mountain back with just a single kick, beating him in sheer strength, it was unheard of. Even Gregor was stunned by what had just happened. Since childhood, this was the first time he had lost in terms of strength. Anger spread across his face, and he struggled to get up under the weight of his armor. Kill him, shouted someone. I had no idea who, but the whiny, high-pitched voice was familiar. From the side, Cersei glanced at her son in confusion. Why did her lion want Thor dead? She had no idea. But this was one wish he couldn't have. That man was hers. I simply waited. Attacking a fallen enemy was beneath me. While my body was still at level 1, he might have been able to provide some competition. I would have upgraded my body long ago, but I held back. Getting stronger without learning how to fully control that power would be detrimental. After mastering the full extent of level 1, I knew that very few could challenge me. With my current strength, it was apparent that either I didn't know my MCU well or those Marvel guys underestimated Thor's real power. Then again, what could you expect from a company that turned someone like the Hulk into comedic relief? Sigh. Anyway, I'd stay at level 1 for the time being and learn the ropes. I had a feeling that once I leveled up, it would be pretty hard to find a real challenge to test myself. Gregor got up and immediately rushed at me, sword raised high. I simply sidestepped the obvious attack, pivoting my body to the right. Then, forcefully stopping my rotation, I twisted my body back to the left, gripping Mjolnir tightly with both hands. With a strong swing, I smashed my hammer against his sword once again. Though this time, I couldn't put much strength into the attack due to the lack of proper leverage in that quick swing. A loud sound rang throughout the jousting ring, and everyone watched as the mountain's greatsword shattered in half. He staggered back once more. By the seven, who is this man? I heard he's from the north. Since when did northerners start looking like that? A maiden said, dazed. I knew he'd win. Thor is strong. Arya puffed her chest out proudly as if she had predicted the outcome. Sansa, meanwhile, only saw the mountain's downed figure for a second before her eyes found Thor again, another blush creeping onto her face. I, on the other hand, sighed as I looked at the broken sword in Gregor's hands. I had hoped to prolong the fight to test out Thor's different combat moves, but alas, all good things must come to an end. There is no honor in fighting an unarmed opponent, I said, slowly tossing Mjolnir aside, surprising everyone, including Gregor, who looked at me in confusion. Though, I wouldn't mind settling this mantoman. I had been meaning to punch someone so badly. Chapter 28. Escape from Winterfell. I was expecting the fight to continue with the mountain. Fighting was fun, even more than I anticipated it to be. Though, maybe because I was winning. However, the king stopped the fighting after that. You'll get all the skulls to crack tomorrow. Gosh, I feel my blood rushing, seeing finally someone using a hammer in a tourney. The king laughed and patted my shoulder, to which I just remained indifferent. After that, we took our leave from the jousting. Good, because I wasn't looking forward to meeting those highborn lords coming to socialize with me. Bunch of leeches, all of them. If they were expecting me to lick their asses just like everyone else, then forget about 7, even 70 of those gods wouldn't prevent those asses from lighting up in a fight. Why can't I use a hammer like you? I can't even lift it. Arya asked with a pouty face as I escorted the girls back to their rooms. Believe me, child, you're not the only one incapable of lifting it, I said, but saw Arya looking at Mjolnir with hot eyes. Apparently, she too wanted to break swords with a hammer. You're learning the sword dance from your new dancing teacher, right? Focus on that. It will serve you well. I sighed. Never seen a more headstrong girl than her. Even Sif back in Asgard was better. Sif had to work extra hard to get recognized as a warrior, being a girl and all, but she did it. I'm sure Arya would find her path soon enough as well. She might be the only Stark in the entire pack whom I wasn't worried about. Others, though, they were a troublesome bunch. I looked at Sansa, who was walking a little behind us with Septa, occasionally glancing at me. The girl was too green for this place, and so was Ned Stark. Can I use a hammer when I grow up? Arya asked with hopeful eyes. Sure. As long as you grow up big and strong. For that, you have to eat more, train well, and rest plenty. Remember the turtle hermit way. Turtle hermit. Arya was confused. Ha ha ha. Never mind. Just make sure you focus on your dancing lessons. I laughed and kept going. The king has called me to dinner tonight for some reason. I have to find something good to wear. I thought of skipping it. However, there is one person whom I wish to meet at this gathering. Winterfell. The room door opened, and a small foot stepped out into the darkness of night. It would be very soon that dawn would break, and then he'd have enough light to travel. However, if he wished to leave Winterfell successfully, then he had to leave now. Bran looked at his room and then at the castle entirely. Hesitation was inside him, but he knew that he had to do this. No one believed him when he told them he saw things. He saw the wall and what was beyond it. He saw a three-eyed raven and found himself trapped inside some animal every time he dreamed. But no one believed him. Bran himself had no proof to show them. However, he knew that these things he saw were not just dreams. Only by going north could he get answers to his questions. However, it was obvious that no one would let him, so he had no other option but to act on his own. Leaving Winterfell under the cover of night was his only way out. He was ready. From enough food to a small weapon in case the need arose, he packed everything. He even stole a pony for himself from Winterfell so he wouldn't have to walk all the way to the wall. But hesitation was stopping his legs from taking another step out of the castle. Closing his eyes, he took a deep breath, and with a determined look, finally took the step out. Going north alone would be very dangerous, and Bran knew that, but he had to go. Soon, dawn broke, and there was enough light for him to continue his journey. It will be a while before everyone in Winterfell finds out. I should hurry. Pressing his lips together, he increased his speed. This time around, the effect of the three-eyed raven was much stronger on Bran for some reason. Maybe it was partly because Bran wasn't hurt, so he was strong enough that the three-eyed raven showed him more, or just the simple fact that the three-eyed raven saw the future changing into something he couldn't seem to control, and thus he needed his successor with him as soon as possible. Bran, though, only knew one thing. He had to hurry. The reason was unknown, but the voice in his mind told him that he had to hurry. Things had changed. What things and how they had changed, he had no idea, but those few words from the dreams didn't let him sleep easy. He had to go. Find out what called him and why. However, just as he was making his way north, he heard movement around him. Sounds that startled him. Who's there? Bran asked. The sun wasn't high enough to completely light up the forest. In the darkness, he heard many voices, and he knew one thing. No animal up here in the north made that sound. He put more pressure on the pony to walk faster. However, that was when he saw the bushes moving, and his eyes widened. He saw a bunch of people with ragged clothing closing in on him with weapons in their hands. Wildlings. Bran recognized them in an instant. Only the wildlings dressed like that up in the north. But how come they are here, this close to Winterfell? His heart suddenly set in panic before he gave the pony's reins a hard tug, making it start galloping the other way around. After him. Don't let him escape. One of the wildlings shouted. Bran was already bolting out of the forest the other way around. He was going in the opposite direction from where he was supposed to be, but he had no option. If he were to fall into the wildlings' hands, only the old gods knew what would happen to him. So he pushed his pony even more. The pony wasn't fast enough, but the people chasing him were on foot, so Bran was still in a better situation. But not for long. While they indeed couldn't capture him, they could attack him from a distance. They didn't care about some lord's son dying more than their own presence being known to the said lord. One of them notched an arrow and hit the poor pony, making Bran fall down and the pony let out a painful scream. No. Bran was hurt but still rose to his feet to run. He knew he couldn't let them catch him. This would not only endanger his life but also involve his family if those wildlings knew who he was. Minutes of running felt like hours for the little boy before he was out of breath. The wildlings were closing in on him, and he couldn't hide with his ragged breathing in hopes that they wouldn't find him. So, behind a tree, he hid from them. He felt them coming closer and was just trying to keep his breathing under control so they wouldn't hear him. Find the boy. He has to be here. Shouted one of the men. Chapter 29. Little Feast. I'm Thor Odinson. It's a pleasure to meet you. I smiled as I took the hand of the little princess who approached me with a big smile on her face. I'm Myrcella. I saw you fighting the mountain. How did you do that? Myrcella asked, her expression full of curiosity. Can I get strong like you? Beside her, I saw the little boy, Tommen, who would be king after Robert Baratheon, because the 9 realms would burn before I let that monster Joffrey sit on the throne. They were Cersei's children, but unlike Joffrey, they turned out to be pretty decent. More than anything, they were innocent children, and I wanted no harm to come to them. Of course, you can get strong. Just make sure to eat your fill and train every day. I smiled and turned around. Currently, I was sitting at a small feast the king had thrown, inviting only some of the most important figures in the capital. Heimdall may know why the children were here when their supposed father was getting his hands full with beer and a whore's breast. I swear, this age wasn't very good at child protection, or child raising, for that matter. Ha ha ha, where is he? Thor, get in here. The king shouted, his voice booming, his face flushed. No idea what he wanted now, but I wasn't very interested in talking with anyone here. No, actually, there was one. He was the reason I even bothered to show up. Ha ha ha, here's our warrior. Robert laughed as I approached, and for the first time since I'd been here, I saw him pull away from the swollen ass of the girl beside him. I see you're enjoying yourself. Drinking and fucking are the only joys I have left in life. But you just reminded me there used to be another one. Gods bless your hammer, boy. Seeing you break down the mountain today almost made me feel like the day I crushed that dragonspawn's chest. So you better believe I'm enjoying this. Robert laughed again. But what about you? Why is there no drink in your hands? I don't like drinking before a fight. Why? Can't handle your liquor, boy. I used to complete barrels before I even considered entering a battlefield. I did that once. An entire army later, I remembered I was supposed to wait for my own. Ha ha ha. You know your words. Here, forget about fighting and enjoy. Drink. Robert grabbed another cup with the same hand he'd had inside that servant's skirt just now and shoved it toward me. Nah, I don't think so. I shook my head. Not that I hated drinking, but I was trying not to get addicted, and by Odin, it was the toughest fight I had faced since I came here. Drink. Your king commands it. Robert's earlier smile faded as he spoke with authority. I looked at the cup, then back at Robert with a smile before placing the cup back down. You're not my king. I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice. What did you say? Robert's voice rose, and suddenly, the atmosphere changed as everyone looked our way. I also saw a few of the guards from earlier tensing. Did I stutter? I glared at him, locking eyes. The tension grew until Robert finally broke eye contact. Ha 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 ha. I like you. A real man, not like those arselicking cunts. Ha ha ha. Fine. No drinks before fighting. But what about getting yourself a good lass? When I was your age, I had fucked girls from the north to Dornay. Robert grinned, taking another sip. Ha ha ha. Women here don't suit my taste much. Back home, I've got a few, goddesses, all of them, I tell you. They keep me away from enjoying my fights too much. At least that's how people know I'll be back, eventually. I smirked. Are you too enchanted by that hammer of yours? Bloody never. Seen you walking without it. Don't tell me you take it to take a shit too. Robert laughed, but my smile stiffened. This wasn't the first time Thor had heard this, and I didn't like the teasing others gave him in his younger years. His infatuation with the hammer really was a little too much. I kind of inherited that feeling and memory. It wasn't all Thor either. I was a big fan of Mjolnir back on Earth. But at least my case was far better than Thor's. I just carried it everywhere because, at level 1, it couldn't fly up to me and I'm the only one who can lift it. And you can't expect it to fly to me, can you? I'd be 6 feet under by now if I didn't take it everywhere I go. A warrior should be ready at all times. A weapon should be an extension of their body. Ha, horseshit. You think my boy, who doesn't even have a hint of muscle in him, failed to lift that thing, and you can trick me? Put the hammer down. Let me show you how to lift a hammer. Robert slammed his cup down and smirked. Seemed like he had wanted to try using Mjolnir for a long time but hadn't gotten a chance until now. You sure? Your subjects might not appreciate their king sprawled on the ground, unable to lift a hammer. I smiled. Nonsense. Just put the metal down, and I'll show you how it's done. Okay. How about a bet, just like your son? My smile widened. Bet. Okay. Out with it already. You win, and I'll do whatever you ask, so long as it's in my power. I win, and you'll do one thing I wish. Simple enough. Done. You'll make a fine knight at my court. For starters, I'll have you fuck for 10 hours and drink 10 barrels of rum, in front of me. Robert grinned. Ah, I'm almost tempted to lose. Alas, I'm not the hammer, and it's the hammer that chooses, King Robert. It's the hammer that chooses. God, I wanted to add, but no, let's keep this spoiler-free a little longer. Robert just spat and bent down to pick up the hammer. I was already coming up with things I could ask from the king. Robert failed spectacularly, and more laughter followed. Soon, this became a game while I kept an eye on my surroundings. For some reason, I didn't see Cersei here. Heimdall knows what she's up to. Good for me though. I kept talking with the king until I finally found the person I was looking for. Lord Varys, may I have a word? Next morning, what do you mean I have to wear armor? I asked, irritation in my tone. It's mandatory to wear armor, my lord, the man who had come to deliver this news only minutes before my much-anticipated fight said with a hint of reluctance. Why did no one tell me this? I hadn't prepared any armor for myself. My apologies, my lord, but without armor, we can't allow you, it's the king's rule. He almost blurted it out, and seeing my glare, he looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. Sigh. Fine. Let me try whatever armor you have in stock right now. We don't have any, my lord. His face turned ugly. His instincts probably told him staying here wasn't very safe. Damn. I sat down, irritation boiling inside me, until my eyes fell on Mjolnir, all shiny and majestic looking. Then something clicked. Well, I might as well give it a try. Chapter 30. Armor up crackle. The sky crackled, and strong winds blew, putting a damper on everyone's mood who came to see good fighting in this tourney. This was the second day of the tourney, and a battle royale was about to take place today. 7 hells, of all times, this accursed storm had to hit this bloody city today. King Robert cursed as he gulped down another drink in anger. He was already frustrated about not getting to fight in the tourney. His friend had talked him out of it. Nobody will hit the king, he said. Robert scoffed. He wanted to fight so much, especially after seeing Thor fighting with his hammer yesterday. But there was truth in his friend's words. There were not many who would dare to hit him. So, he reluctantly gave up fighting. But if that wasn't enough, suddenly the climate changed. It was bright and sunny just a few minutes ago, and now it felt like a storm was about to hit King's Landing. Shazam mmmmm. Suddenly, a lightning bolt fell somewhere far in the nearby woods, making everyone waiting for the tourney to start flinch, now having second thoughts about staying there any longer. But the king wasn't having it. He announced the fighting to start. And just as time went on, the black clouds in the sky lightened up, only slightly, but it was an improvement. In a big gladiator-style ring, knights and fighters from all over the 7 kingdoms who had come to participate in the tourney entered. There were many knights with their handsome faces and shiny armor, but many waited for one face to appear. A particular blonde whom many expected to win them big gold. After learning that he was participating, many high lords and ladies placed their bets on Thor. However, the person they were waiting for was nowhere to be seen. Almost all the participants had entered the fighting ring, but Thor wasn't there. Where is he? Did you see him? Arya stood up in her chair to find her favorite blonde, thinking that it was her height preventing her from seeing him. Arya, come down from there. He'll be here. Ned Stark sighed, seeing his younger daughter being troublesome again. Looking at his older one, he found she was no better either. The lass was biting down on her teeth like she hadn't eaten anything in years. Where is Thor? King Robert grumbled, not seeing the person he was waiting to see fight in the ring. Cersei, on the side, was the same. She usually came for appearance's sake and quickly took her leave from any tourney unless her brother was involved, but today was different. She was here to see Thor's fight. She had learned that last night her pig of a husband had invited the man to his small feast. She wished she could have been there, but alas, she had to tie up some loose ends. Pycelle had finally found something about that whore's location, the one who had taken her child. The merchant who had helped her out of the city in his cart was brought in by Pycelle and other guards. He confirmed that the boy she had with her had blonde hair and blue eyes. Though how much of what he said was truth and how much was just to save his own head from being on a pike the next morning was unsure. However, she would find out soon enough. She immediately sent men to the small village where that woman had taken her child. Soon, the truth would be in front of her. The crowd was starting to get bored from waiting when suddenly a strong wind blew, almost making everyone cover their eyes. The wind rushed directly to the entrance of the circle, where many finally saw someone coming out. Just as the first step of the man they had been waiting for came out, a thunderous sound shook the sky, as if the heavens were welcoming the person who had just arrived. Then the sky lit up, bathing the man in light that some might even call holy. What is he wearing? Ned Stark's eyes narrowed, and others did the same. They saw Thor step out in an armor they had never seen in Westeros. It was an intricate design between leather and metal. Multiple metal plates were attached to his armor. But what made both Ned and Robert even more astonished was the mail he was wearing. It was no normal chainmail. It was like the iron was engraved into his skin itself. Even with the armor, they could see the contours of his big arms. His long blonde hair was tied up this time, letting only a few strands flow, giving him an almost princely look. And if that wasn't enough to grab attention, he had a big red cape behind him that floated in the strong wind, making his physique, combined with that armor and handsome face, almost godlike. Apologies, my armor needed cleaning, he said with a brilliant smile, and Ned heard his daughter next to him gasp. Is she blushing? Well, he couldn't blame her. Let alone her. He doubted even her mother would blush seeing this man like this here. And he was right. Almost all the girls present felt their hearts leap out of their chests when they saw the charming prince in such handsome armor, which seemed like it was specially made for him. Ah, Thor is so handsome. Little Marcella blushed slightly before turning to her mother to share her thoughts. Right, mother. However, no response came. She found her mother was in a daze. Mother! Mother! Marcella shouted, finally bringing Cersei out of her dazed state. What? She looked at her daughter with a glare. You're drooling. Marcella pointed at her mother's face with a giggle. What? Robert Baratheon saw the handsome, godlike face of the teenager in front of him with slight irritation. The boy reminded him of himself too much. 7. He even looked a little like him, to the point where he might have mistaken him for one of his bastards. Then how come he's so handsome? He remembered himself not having a face like that when he was young. An irritated glare was shot at Thor right then. He wasn't alone, though. Many sent envious looks at him. If I had this bastard's face, would I ever have had to pay for whores? Women from all 7 kingdoms would have flown with their legs open like wings to land on my cock. He muttered under his breath. He wasn't in the best of moods, seeing how he lost the bet with Thor yesterday. He swore to the 7, the force he applied yesterday to lift that hammer was enough to unplug a dragon's tail, but that hammer didn't budge an inch. Not only he, but none were able to lift it, none other than the owner himself. He had the gall to flaunt it by tossing the hammer in the air and effortlessly catching it with his fingers. With bloody fingers. Sorcery, he was sure of it. But he lost nonetheless. The 7 only knew what the boy wanted to ask of him. He hadn't voiced it yet. Still seeing women and men alike gushing over the boy, he shouted in irritation, enough of it. Have none of you seen a pretty boy before? Start the damn fight already before I put him in a whorehouse for you all to test out. He would be disappointed to know that there were some who might actually like that idea. I hated to use the upgrade point this early before figuring out which attribute would be best to upgrade, but seeing their reactions, I believe it was worth it. I really like Mjolnir for this reason. Besides all its fighting capabilities, the hammer also gives its user armor when necessary. Good for me that level 2 Mjolnir was able to do so. This was the same armor Thor had in the second money. I believe out of all the armor that was the best. I had to go out of the crowded area to bring down the lightning, though, or else it wouldn't work. That's why I got late. It's a bummer not being able to test how strong I would be at level 1 across all attributes, but this is also good. I looked at the knights in their full plate armor, staring at me with strange expressions. It wasn't just my different armor, it was the cape they were looking at. I thought the cape was a little too much, but why not? Come on, please don't disappoint me too bad. Chapter 31. Assassination Attempt. Ha! With a loud shout, he kicked the man, sending him tumbling down backwards before he went to the next person. Another person came rushing at him. He was outnumbered, but still wearing the armor, he was more than enough to handle this bunch of wildlings. This wasn't his fight, but he still acted to save the child foolish enough to leave the safe walls of his castle. Sandor Clegane wasn't an honorable man, at least he himself didn't think so. He wasn't a knight either, and even after being offered the title multiple times, he refused every time. Part of the reason he avoided being knighted was because he never believed in knighthood and their oaths. If those oaths were true, then someone like his brother would never have been knighted in the first place. The only reason he was even working for the Lannisters was because he wished to get a chance to kill his brother himself. So when he saw a familiar boy being chased by some lowlife thugs, he himself wasn't sure why, but he acted and protected him. Well, tried to protect him, as this was still a work in progress. He saw another man coming at him with a crude dagger in his hand, aiming for his side. Even with his armor, which was recently fixed by Winterfell's smith, he avoided the attack. Recent events had made him trust his armor less than he used to. Swinging his sword, he blocked the incoming attack but saw another wildling attacking him. He was seriously outnumbered, and more troublingly, he couldn't move around much either, as he was protecting the annoying brat behind him. I should have just kept on moving, he cursed under his breath. He left Winterfell even before sunrise as he had to get to the wall before the dwarf left for King's Landing. Though he was completely capable of traveling alone, that would mean living like shit on the road until he got to the capital. With Tyrion Lannister, however, to put it simply, he'd at least not be cursing the entire journey. So, he was very surprised when he saw the same brat who had annoyed him a few days ago being chased by a bunch of wildlings. He knew the north had these pests lingering around due to the wall for ages, but the seven only knew what they were doing this far south. What are you looking at? Get out of there, Sandor cursed, looking at Bran, who was still staring at him like an idiot. Bran didn't say anything. He just kept looking at the hound, maybe too stunned to realize what he was saying. The hound just grumbled under his breath and kept attacking until only two more of them were left. Sandor was tired, gasping for breath, and his wounds still ached. Curse that bear slayer. But he still stood his ground fast. Both enemies came at him at the same time, giving him little room to move around and dodge. Gritting his teeth, he countered the first sword coming his way but was too late to block the next. He saw the sword coming directly for his exposed side. Ha! Quadruple A! Sansa all but screamed, seeing a man with a dagger coming at me while three others restrained me. I didn't even realize what happened until I saw the man take out a dagger, ready to shove it into my gut. I heard Sansa's cries, and she wasn't the only one. I have to say, they completely caught me off guard. I was expecting everyone to fight, but not to gang up on me. I was waiting for the fight to start, and as soon as the signal was given, instead of me rushing at those knights, I saw three people standing almost beside me rush at me from both directions, catching me off guard. I knew some people would want to work in groups so they could have a chance to win the prize money, but this wasn't that either. They deliberately came at me, and before I knew it, one grabbed me from the back while the other two restrained my arms. Fighting in groups is not against the rules, strangely, but going so far as to completely restrain me like this. That's when I knew. They were no fighters, they were assassins. Someone had sent men after me yet again. Anger filled my mind, but I had more immediate issues to solve. Ha! 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 The man with the dagger didn't even bother talking nonsense about some pointless mercy or his motive, earning a wise villain card in my books, and directly shoved the dagger at my gut. Repeatedly, he attacked me with his dagger, earning gasps from the audience. I even saw the king and queen surprised. Other knights, already at each other's throats, saw this scene and stopped. More screams rang out around me as the man stabbed me repeatedly. This was no longer a fight. It was murder, an assassination attempt. To be honest, this was my fault. Expecting a fair fight and not anticipating the unexpected was my mistake. I might have better skills now, but my experience with real-life fighting was still lacking. However, that doesn't mean I couldn't avoid this outcome. I was just too lazy to do it. Huff. Huff. The man was done stabbing me as his adrenaline ran out, and he finally stepped back. His face contorted as he saw the dagger in his hand. He noticed the tip was bent, and the entire dagger had a curve. A look of disbelief spread across his face before he turned to me. You should have gone for the head. Ha! I shouted and delivered the meanest Spartan kick to the man's chest, sending him flying back. He literally lifted into the air before falling back, a clear dent in his armor. The other men holding onto me were taken aback, but I wasn't done yet. I delivered an aggressive headbutt to the man holding onto my right hand, sending him sprawling back with a cracked, bleeding skull. As soon as my right hand, holding Mjolnir, was released, I slammed the hammer onto the man holding my left, definitively killing him on the spot with a direct hit to his face. As for the man who was holding me from the back, after the other two were done, he was no longer able to stop me. I grabbed the man by his hair with my left hand and threw him away, making him stagger back before my hammer found his head, cracking it, sending him flying, and removing yet another piece of garbage from the face of the earth. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. I was very fast. Fast enough that none were able to react until a cheer rang out from the audience. I saw Sansa and Arya cheering for me. Many of the girls, in fact, were doing that, even the queen, to my utter amazement. But the loudest was none other than the king. Letting those men get the drop on me was my oversight. Won't happen again. As for testing out the armor like that, only now did I realize how foolish it was. What if the armor was only at level 1 or 2? Yeah, I would be finding my way to Valhalla right now. Thor's personality is kind of rubbing off on me, making me a little reckless and prone to taking risks, and yet, I liked it. The thrill it gave me almost made me smile. This was the life and death thrill that gives a warrior a kick he can't ever get from wine or women. So, I embraced this newfound madness and only said one thing. Next. Chapter 32. Tourney Fight 1. Ned Stark was worried when he saw Thor getting grabbed by a few men in armor and getting stabbed. He knew that someone had targeted him, tried to assassinate him earlier. He didn't know why, but he should have stopped him from taking part in the tourney. He only held back because it was Robert who wanted Thor to fight in the tourney. However, seeing Thor getting stabbed in front of him, he felt that his death would be on him. Sansa all but started crying while Arya wanted to rush into the ring to kill the man who had sneaked an attack on Thor. They had no honor, ganging up on him 4-1 like that. He heard the king shouting about capturing those men, putting their heads on spikes or whatever. However, that wasn't necessary after what happened next. That dagger bent before Thor's armor got pierced, earning a gasp from many lords and ladies who were close enough to see that. However, that wasn't the end either. Thor freed himself and cracked all of their skulls with such ease that he looked like he was playing with children. Kicking the first person, sinking the low-quality armor he was wearing, sending the man back while he headbutted another, almost killing the man. While his enemy's head burst open from the headbutt, Thor himself was completely unscathed. If there was a small chance that the first two men somehow survived against this absolute brute of a man, then the latter two were dead the moment Thor had his hammer-wielding hand freed. King Robert saw the boy making short work of those motherfucking cowards who dared to gang up on him. By the way they acted, it was clear that they weren't just here for fighting. Robert wanted to detain them at once and cut their cocks off before knowing who ordered them, but he didn't think that would be possible after what Thor did to them. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. That's it. Fuck those cunts, lad. Robert laughed, his stomach ripping with laughter, filled with wine. Sansa and Arya, on the side, seeing Thor was fine, sighed in relief, and later, seeing him making short work of everyone else had them hyped like 5-year-olds on a sugar rush. Sansa was less vocal about it than Arya, but she was cheering hard enough to draw her father's look from the side, making him shake his head in contemplation. The only person who didn't look pleased was Joffrey, who was scowling, seeing that he couldn't watch the bastard die. Crash. A man was sent flying towards where some of the audience were watching the match, his head bursting open. Following him was another who had his sword twisted and his armor sunken in. I saw another man coming at me from the side, and I dodged easily enough before kicking the man on his side to knock him off his feet. Before I could deliver a strike to take him out of the fight, another rushed at me, aiming directly at my head. Ducking, I swung the hammer right on his breastplate, sinking it in and throwing the man back. A smile appeared on my face, seeing the man not getting up again before I rushed to another person who was closest to me. Most of the men here were skilled, so there were no usual openings like the ones I handled with those lowlife thugs from earlier. However, they weren't fast enough to handle my speed or strong enough to stop my strikes. I made sure not to kill them, but it was a hard task keeping my power in check when I had no idea how much to use. This was the first time I had gotten a chance to let loose like this, not to mention I could feel that Mjolnir was doing a terrible amount of damage after I upgraded it. Now it was clear that the power of the hammer increased with every upgrade. It wasn't just limited to lightning manipulation or flying. Even the strikes it could dish out were getting stronger, and it was addicting. After putting down 3 more opponents, I saw competition, whatever insignificant amount of it existed anyway, getting wary of me. 10 or so people were left, and none were getting closer to me. Both of our weapons collided, and the power of that clash alone was enough to make his weapon blow out of his hand before I grabbed him by his armor and slammed my head on his, knocking him out completely before letting him fall. That's brutal. Sansa put her hand over her mouth, acting like a proper lady. Though she liked Thor prevailing above everyone else, she just wasn't voicing it out. I like it. Arya grinned. I don't know what his head is made of, but if I see you doing that, you're going back to Winterfell to your mother. Ned narrowed his eyes at his youngest daughter. Seeing me taking down people like flies, some fighters around decided to gang up on me. They surrounded me from all sides, not giving me a chance to charge at them recklessly. This was yet another downside I had to overcome. Though I trained enough to fight anyone one-on-one, fighting multiple enemies with the limited reach of my hammer was an issue. Thor, of course, didn't have this problem due to his ability to bring down lightning and throw his hammer, which would eventually return to him. You're not my opponent. Make way, and you have my word that you all won't be harmed. I said with as much authority as I could muster. Fighting them was harder but not impossible. It was just that I wasn't interested in fighting them right now. My eyes were on the bigger game. I glanced to the side and saw a huge man in black armor with a great sword making short work of knights around him. Just like me, he too was surrounded by a few of the knights. Getting no response from them, I could only smirk. I presume peace is not an option, then. Ha! All of them shouted and charged at me at the same time. All of them came at me at once, making me grit my teeth. I needed at least some sort of window to dodge right, so the only option I had was to swing my hand back and throw the hammer with all my power toward one of the knights charging at me. Mjolnir couldn't fly even at level 2, but I could throw it at anything close enough, and it would do the job just as intended. Here, it was the same. The hammer hit the knight charging at me right on his head. He was completely caught off guard and fell down, giving me the exact opening I was looking for. I saw Mjolnir a little further from me. No chance to get to the hammer, so I dived for the sword the fallen knight had dropped, dodging the other three at the same time. A barrel roll later, I had the knight's sword in hand, which I immediately had to use to guard against another attack coming at my side. At least that move put all the enemies on one side, making it easier to handle them. Thor knew how to use a sword, but he wasn't the best at it, let alone me, who had hardly trained in swordsmanship. I just dodged and blocked the blows coming at me with the unfamiliar weapon until I reached my hammer. But apparently, those knights knew what I was trying to do, and they tried to keep the pressure on me. Gritting my teeth in frustration, I pivoted against the upcoming attack while turning the sword in my hand, getting it into a reverse grip before throwing it at a knight like it was a spear. Even with my full power, it didn't do much since my aim was abysmal, and swords are not meant for throwing. But that impromptu move gave me enough leeway to make a dodge for Mjolnir. Just as the hammer came into my hand, I grabbed it by the leather strap at the end and started to rotate it. I'll try not to kill any of you, but don't take my word for it. Chapter 33. Tourney fight 2 inches. What madness led you to come here alone? Sandor asked, anger clear in his voice. He wasn't exactly as angry at the boy whose life he had saved as he was at himself. What madness had led him to take this impulsive action to save the boy from those wildlings? He himself would like to know. I'm sorry. Bran could only put his head down and take out a clean cloth to bandage the hound's wounds while he was protecting him, in silence. Forget it. Go back to Winterfell. Stay here. Soon, your father's men are going to search this place. Just stay, and they'll find you. Sandor gritted his teeth, pain and irritation clear on his face. No, I can't do that. Bran almost immediately protested, but seeing the hound looking at him with eyes that promised a lot of pain, he lowered his voice. I have to go beyond the wall, he said in a small voice. Sandor had no curiosity about learning what went on inside the mind of a pampered and spoiled son of a Lord Paramount. This was not his problem, and thus, he didn't care to say anything more. He just let the boy do whatever he wished. You're going to the wall, right? Could you, take me? Bran, seeing the hound didn't react, thought about asking. He no longer had his pony, and going back to Winterfell to get another was out of the question. As for walking up to the wall, that could take days. In that time, men from Winterfell would definitely catch up to him. No. The hound replied without delay and was ready to leave. Bran panicked, seeing this, and with a little hesitation, said, think about it. We both left Winterfell at the same time. What do you think my brother or mother would think happened to me when I went missing the same day you left Winterfell? Bran said as he gulped. Agitating this man could cost him his life, but he had no other option. Alone, he could really die or never reach the wall at all. Sandor narrowed his eyes, looking at Bran with a dangerous glint now. If you take me to the wall and leave me there before my brother catches up to me. If you hand me over to the wall, then they'll really believe you didn't kidnap me but found me here in the open and saved me. Bran said hesitantly. And what if I just kill you right here and be done with it? Sandor didn't like how the boy was blackmailing him. Then they'll definitely think it was you. You're going there anyway. Just take me. Bran shrugged, trying not to show he was nervous. Sandor, for a long time, didn't say anything, but he knew he'd be fucked either way. Fuck. Sansa watched her knight fighting 3 opponents at once, excitement bubbling inside her. Her mind was already coming up with scenarios where Thor won the fight and gave her the rose, declaring her his queen of love and beauty. Only thinking about this made her face flush with heat. His earlier comment about the tourney of Harrenhal came to mind, and though it was an awful remark about the poor kingdom, she couldn't care less about it. What should I do if he does that? I'm already betrothed to Joffrey. She muttered to herself in a serious tone. Will there be another rebellion for me? Will Thor fight Joffrey for my hand? She tried hard, but the creeping blush on her face and the dangerous line of thought in her mind were impossible to subdue. Arya, who was mostly avoiding her sister, also felt that something was wrong with Sansa. Instead of watching Thor fight, she was muttering something to herself with a serious face. I could never understand this proper lady. Arya sighed and almost rolled her eyes at the anomaly of this world, which was her sister, before going back to cheering for Thor, who was fighting 3 knights alone. Other lords and ladies were the same. Out of all the knights fighting, the one who attracted the most attention was Thor. Put another 1,000 gold dragons on the mountain crusher. Put my gold as well. Where did the Lord Hand get someone like him? Since when did the North start producing warriors this strong and handsome? One of the ladies asked with dreamy eyes. TCH, don't you know? He's a foreigner. He went to the North by mistake. Servants are saying that he has good relations with even the king. Do you think he'll stay? Maybe he'd like my company at night as well. Chattering grew among the audience as the fighting became more intense. Clang, clang, clang. Again and again, metal clashed, and the fight continued. Unlike the earlier thugs, these knights were miles better. Even after significantly surpassing them in both speed and power, they were holding their own, although barely, against me. I commended their determination, but honestly speaking, they didn't stand a chance. The only reason I wasn't putting more force behind my strikes was that I was getting free experience with them. Fighting multiple people in this controlled environment, where I knew they wouldn't directly go for a killing strike, was rare, and thus, I kept my hand steady, getting used to fighting multiple opponents at once. However, soon it became quite tiring. Their skill level was average at best, so ultimately, I didn't learn too much while fighting them. A little disappointing, but what could you expect from mortals? Ready to give up yet? Don't be ashamed. You'll be losing to the best warrior of Asgard. I smiled, seeing all 3 of them huffing. I too was a little tired of holding back, that is, but no more. I didn't wish to continue this battle pointlessly. Upon not getting any response from the 3 knights, who were desperately attacking me while I matched their attacks with equal ferocity, I made up my mind. Well then, it was nice fighting with you good sirs. But I have a prize to win, so this is goodbye for now. That said, I rushed at them quicker this time, taking them by surprise as I broke the earlier rhythm we had. One of them went for a punch as I got a little too close to him, but I dodged with surprising agility and kicked him in the chest, sending him tumbling back before another was already swinging his sword at me. Seeing where he was trying to hit, I didn't care. I had already seen that normal steel here wouldn't work against my armor, but I didn't want to rely on that, so before the sword arrived, I swung my hammer at the same time, matching the upcoming weapon. Unlike before, when I was testing out level 2 Mjolnir and getting used to fighting multiple opponents, I didn't hold back this time around. Upon contact, the sword shattered into pieces, staggering the knight back. Normal steel in this world couldn't stand against something like Uru. Maybe Valyrian steel could, but again, there weren't many Valyrian steel weapons in this world. Just destroying his weapon wasn't enough now. There were a lot of weapons lying around here. He could continue the fight. On the side, I noticed that the last knight was ready to deliver a quick jab to distract me. I couldn't let the disarmed opponent grab a weapon again, so without delay, I threw my hammer at the charging knight. The throw wasn't that strong as I didn't get enough leverage to put more power into it. Mjolnir hit the 3rd knight in the chest. He only staggered slightly. The lack of power from that throw didn't even leave a good mark on his armor. But that gave me enough time to rush up to the disarmed knight and punch him right in the head to make him dizzy. Then I grabbed him from his shoulder and waist and put all my muscles into action. With all my power, I lifted the man up like some WWE wrestler. Actually, I stole the move from there. With his armor on, and then with all my strength, I threw the man at the other knight, making him unable to dodge or block as almost 200 kilograms of man and iron crashed onto him, earning gasps from the audience. By the 7, is he even a man? Can the mountain do that? Chattering broke out once again as I made quick work of the 3 knights. Huff. Okay. That one move really felt like a strain on this level 1 body. Lifting a man with armor sideways is probably not the best idea. I saw Sansa and Arya pointing at me. Sighing, I was ready to go take my hammer before rejoining the battle when my senses screamed bloody murder at me. No. Behind me. Chapter 34. Tourney Fight 3. My eyes widened, and I immediately turned back only to find a giant sword coming directly at my face. Having no time to dodge, I could only use the new armor I got and tank the attack. I brought my arm guard in front of my face. A huge force impacted me, making me tumble back, falling to the ground before I finally got a good look at who did this. I saw a big black armored man coming at me with a great sword in his hand. It was the mountain, still attacking from behind. Coward. Ha! He shouted, raising his great sword and bringing it down directly on me. I didn't have time to get up, so I could only roll out of the way to dodge the attack. My armor was able to tank the attack from earlier, but I wouldn't want to put more pressure on it. The mountain was relentless, he attacked again and again. I was barely able to dodge the attacks 2 more times before the mountain put one of his legs on mine, stopping me from moving around. Stop him, he'll kill Thor. Someone shouted, but I didn't have time to see who. The mountain raised his sword and, with both hands, brought it down vertically at me. Gritting my teeth, I could only use my bare hands to catch the blade midair by slamming my palms on both sides of it. Ha! No matter how much strength I used, the sword kept inching toward my neck. The bastard put all of his weight on the sword to pierce me. Ha! I shouted again, but the sword didn't stop. The blade tip was almost at my neck at this point. Anger filled me at this moment. I was still lacking in fighting experience, letting my guard down like that. And with anger came lightning. Unconsciously, my anger, which was the prominent emotion I used to practice channeling lightning without Mjolnir, brought forth the lightning from within me. Suddenly, the mountain saw my eyes glowing slightly before his body started to shake as if thousands of volts of electricity went through him. His body suddenly went limp at this sudden change, and that was when I had my chance. I targeted my other leg at the man's unstable leg, kicking him with all the power I could muster while still being stepped on by him on one leg and lying down. Apparently, that was enough to make him stumble back due to the effect of the thunder still coursing through him. I got up and immediately dived for my hammer, which was only a few steps away from me. By the time I got there, I could already see the mountain regaining his balance and ready to swing his sword at me. I barely dodged the sword by turning around, and my instincts, in the same turning motion, threw the hammer in my hand directly at the mountain's head. A point-blank hammer throw hit him before he staggered back and lost his helmet. Only after throwing the hammer did I realize that I shouldn't have done that. That was Thor's natural reaction, which happened, but unlike Thor, I couldn't summon Mjolnir back. For Asgard, having nothing else, I charged mindlessly directly at the mountain with my fist knocked back. Jumping as high as I could, I soared even above the mountain's height before delivering the strongest punch I could muster at the staggered enemy before he recovered. A satisfying snapping sound echoed before the monster of a man was thrown back, completely knocked out. For a second, there was silence in the entire stadium. All the remaining knights stopped fighting while the audience halted their idle chatter. I felt all eyes on me. Huffing, I looked around, not even glancing at those highborn lords and ladies. My eyes were only on the leftover knights who were still standing. Only 3 left. I knew none of them. I slowly moved towards my fallen hammer before gently picking it up and looking at the last 3 knights, observing my movements. I saw their eyes shuffling between me and the now fallen body of the mountain. Gregor's head was split open with that last punch of mine. He was bleeding, and if that snapping sound was any indication, I could tell that if this brute, by the grace of the World Tree, survived, then he'd be another Hodor at best. Surrender, and you have my word. I was repeating the same dialogue from earlier. However, even before I completed my words, the sound of steel falling to the ground resounded. Gasps spread as everyone saw those knights dropping their swords before raising their hands and yielding before me. And then, an ear-splitting applause followed. I heard claps, whistles, and even shouts from the audience as I was the last man, God standing in the ring. This was also the same time when the sky roared out one more time before the lingering black clouds spread, letting the sunlight fall to the ground. Rays first fell on me and then spread all over the area. I swear this wasn't me. Sometimes, I wonder whether Asgardians are really not gods but just powerful aliens. People noticed this, and more shouts spread out. I saw girls and highborn ladies were the loudest to cheer at my victory. I feel like I just cleared a boss fight. It wasn't a hard boss fight, but still, the feeling was the same. A smile appeared on my face as the adrenaline dissipated from my system, making me relax, and I raised my hammer up to resonate with their cheers. I knew it. 7 saggy balls. Boy, that was beautiful. Brutal, dangerous and madness, but beautiful. King Robert, on the side, had the biggest laughter since he discovered the pleasure of fucking. His laughter dwarfed even the entire cheering of the audience before he got up from his place and rushed at me with arms wide open. I knew the day I saw you beat that bear that you could give a dragon a run for his money. Ha ha ha. Ah, I see so much of me in you. Robert grinned and emptied the glass of wine in his hand before throwing the cup away. Ned Stark also came forward alongside Robert to congratulate Thor. Technically, Thor was his vassal until he was playing bodyguard for his daughters, so it was his duty to come forward and reward him. However, when he heard what Robert just said, his mind suddenly clicked, like thunder struck him at that instance. He turned around in a daze, looking at where the king's children were. Tell me what you want. I would have knighted you, but I know you'll not kneel, you bloody bastard. So ask anything you desire. Robert laughed widely, looking very happy. Can't come up with anything right this instance. How about we think it over with the drink I promised to share with you? I smiled and replied with a shrug. Robert was more than happy to agree. I told him I'd drink with him after the fighting, gave him my word, and thus, I'm gonna fulfill it. I was done here. Now was the time to go back and think about what all I did wrong in this fight. Made too many mistakes that could have been life-threatening for a mortal. Where the fuck are you going? Robert, seeing me making my way to the audience stands, asked in puzzlement. My quarters. 7 hells, not a single day passes where you fail to remind us you ain't from the 7 kingdoms. Lancel, bring the flour. Robert just shook his head and shouted. Lancel was his squire, more like a cupbearer, seeing as it had been ages since this oversized turkey swung his hammer. The Lannister boy came hurriedly with a flower in his hand, which he handed over to me. Choose your queen of love and beauty. You won the tourney. You have that right. Seeing me still confused, Ned Stark sighed and came to me and explained what this is about. I actually knew it but forgot all about it in the battle heat. Do I have to? I sounded more annoyed than I should have. Seeing Robert grinning, a glint in his eyes, he definitely having fun. I don't know and don't give 2 flying fucks what happened from where you came from, but here a warrior should have a lady. Go on, it's you glory. Robert clapped my back with enough power to break my back if it was the old me from Earth. Sigh, I unwillingly looked around and only found 3 females I could have given this flower to. Sansa, Arya and the little princess Myrcella. With Sansa's personality I very well as proposing if I gave this to her. Arya wouldn't like being called a lady, so the only left was the little princess. There was also Cersei. I wonder what madness had to infest within me to choose that mad woman. Fortunately, by the grace of Yggdrasil, my mind is still sound, and no disease has claimed my reasoning. Chapter 35. Revelations. Winterfell. The halls of Winterfell were filled with panic. Servants ran through the corridors, searching every corner. Guards hurried to and fro, checking the walls, the gates, and even the crypts. But Bran was nowhere to be found. Lady Catelyn sat in the great hall, her hands trembling. Her face was pale, her mind racing with fear. Robb stood beside her, his jaw clenched, trying to stay calm. Esser Roderick Castle and Theon stood across from them, their expressions grim. We have searched every room, every tower, even the godswood, my lady, Esser Roderick said, shaking his head. The boy is not here. Then where is he? She asked with a trembling voice. He wouldn't leave on his own. Someone must have taken him. Catelyn knew that Bran was much different after that fever than she remembered, but no matter what, he wouldn't leave the castle on his own. At least that much Catelyn believed in. Robb turned to Theon. The gates. Was there any sign of someone leaving? Theon frowned. The guards say they saw no one leave, but, he hesitated. But what? Catelyn pressed. Theon glanced at Esser Roderick before speaking. The Hound. He left Winterfell last night. His horse is missing, and the stables are also one pony less. Silence filled the room. Robb's eyes narrowed in confusion. The Hound. Esser Roderick stroked his beard. He said he was heading for the wall. Been frustrated staying here. His wound wasn't completely healed, but he said he'd be leaving anyway. Seems like he did, without a word to anyone, just rode out before dawn. Catelyn's face twisted with anger and fear. Then he took Bran with him. She whispered. Robb shook his head, still uncertain. Why would he take Bran? He's got no reason to. Does it matter? Catelyn snapped. He was in Winterfell. He left the same night Bran disappeared. What more is needed to be said? She all but shouted. Definitely not thinking straight right now. Esser Roderick nodded slowly. It does look suspicious, my lord. We have no other leads. Robb clenched his fists. Then we ride. If he took Bran, then the possibility is that he won't go to the wall but send someone anyway. The rest will move south. We'll find Bran and bring him home, Robb said after a little silence, knowing that his mother was too emotional to think soundly right now. He'd have to act as the Lord of the North. Catelyn grabbed his arm. You must be careful. If the Lannisters are behind this, then this could be a trap. She remembered the letter she got from her sister, making her believe that the Lannisters were behind this. Robb's face hardened. Trap or not, we must act. I will not sit here while my brother is missing. He turned to Theon. Gather the men. We'll ride immediately. Catelyn closed her eyes, praying that they were not too late. And what if the Hound really took him? What if the Lannisters are really behind this? Theon asked with anticipation. Then they should be careful, because winter is coming for them. Sandor let out a frustrated sigh. 7 bloody hells. Should have just let those wildlings rip you apart. Sigh. Fine. I'll take you to the wall, he grumbled, though he didn't want to do this brat's bidding. But he was truly cornered. Even taking the brat to Winterfell might not work since he could open his horse mouth and lie about being kidnapped. He had no other option but to take him to the wall. But don't think for a second that I'll carry you if you can't keep up. Bran let out a breath of relief. Thank you, he said. The Hound rolled his eyes. Don't thank me, boy. You just blackmailed me into this mess. Once we reach the wall, you don't know me, and I don't know you. Is that understood? He kicked at the snow, then glanced at Bran, to which the boy nodded with vigor. Now tell me, why in the 7 hells would you leave a warm castle to wander into the frozen wasteland? Bran hesitated. He had told others about his dreams before, but none believed him, not even his family. But Sandor had saved his life. Maybe he'd believe. I see things, Bran admitted. The Hound raised an eyebrow. See things. In my dreams, Bran explained. A 3-eyed raven comes to me. It wants me to follow it. I don't know why, but I feel like I have to. Sandor scoffed. You ran away because of a damn bird in your dreams. Now he was wondering whether taking the boy was even a wise decision. It's more than that, Bran insisted. I've read about the White Walkers. The dead rising, the long night. I think it's real. I think they're coming back. The Hound snorted. Again with those books. They are stories, you bloody brat. Bran shook his head. I don't think so. You didn't see. Back home, people are keeping this matter a secret, but I heard them. Heard what? The White Walkers. They exist, Bran responded. Sandor was silent for a moment, then shook his head. You Starks are all mad. He climbed onto his horse and motioned for Bran to follow. Come on, then. Before I change my mind. Bran climbed up behind him. The road to the wall was long, but his journey had finally begun. King's Landing, Lord Orys Baratheon. Black of hair, Axel Baratheon. Black of hair, Lionel Baratheon. Black of hair, Steffon Baratheon. Black of hair, Robert Baratheon. Black of hair, Ronald Baugh. Ned Stark stopped. He was expecting Joffrey's name, which he found just before the name he had just read. Goldhead. He read Joffrey's description and finally pieced things together. None of the Queen's children were legitimate heirs to the throne. All of them were bastards. That's what Jon Arryn was trying to say. The seed is strong. Ned felt a headache coming on. Before his mind started to wander, he went back to that name again. Ronald Baratheon, stillborn. He couldn't help but mutter to himself in incredulity. He didn't even know Robert had another child, let alone a stillborn. Whatever it was, though, now he knew what was going on. He had to act. He had to tell Robert. However, his honor said that he should not harm the queen's bastard children. The children were innocent, after all. But at the same time, he wondered whether he should even do it. After all, this could cause a war that the Seven Kingdoms, and the North especially, could not afford right now. Sigh. Chapter 36. The game has began. Aha. Who sent you? Aha. Who sent you? Ha. Huff huff. I had to give it to him. This one was one tough son of a bitch. That was the third finger I cut, and yet he kept his mouth shut. You know what? I understand now. You do not value your own fingers as much as I thought you would. It's fine. There are other things in your body that I could cut. I smiled and used the same Valyrian steel dagger I got from the first assassin to cut open the pants of the second assassin I encountered. The man seemed to understand my intentions and started to thrash around more. No good for him. I had him tied up well. One word to the king, and I got custody of the man who attacked me in the fighting ring. I deliberately left two alive for later questioning. One man was more than enough for me to find out the culprit behind this. I can't say I'm impressed. Oh well, this just means that you'll notice no difference once that's gone. No, wait. 2. LL speak. Finally, seeing the bloodied knife getting closer to his manhood, he couldn't take it any longer and spoke out. I didn't expect this level of tightmouthness from an assassin in King's Landing. Now I'm way more relaxed about killing the first one. If he was anything like this one, then chances are I wouldn't have gotten anything out of him anyway. A wise man you are. At the very least, better than not being a man at all, right? I smiled and removed the blade digging at his balls before going back to sit down. For hours I had been at this. I had no experience in torturing and wouldn't say I did any good job here. Even Thor had no experience in torturing in his memories. But I had to do it myself if I wanted to know who sent this one after me. If my suspicions were right, then those interrogators in the castle wouldn't reveal the name behind this incident. After having some drinks with Robert, which he practically dragged me to, I came directly here to gather some much needed intel. And it was a good thing I hurried because when I went to get to him, I found two guards inside his cell. Odin knows what they were doing there, but I had my suspicions. If I had been even a minute late, then this lead too would have been dead before I could even interrogate him. And just as I thought, the name was indeed someone who would want me dead and would use this kind of underhanded tactic. Alas, I just learned that this assassin didn't have the same patronage as the one I dealt with before. One enemy at a time. First, let's go and meet a gracious friend who sent me this beautiful dagger. It's finally time to return the favor for his generosity. Grand Maester Pycelle entered the Queen's solar, his steps slow, though much of it was an act. In his wrinkled hands, which were trembling, again, an act, he held a sealed letter, freshly arrived from the wall. A raven, your grace, he wheezed, bowing as he extended the parchment. From your brother. Cersei, seated by the window with a goblet of wine, snatched the letter from his hands with zeal, thinking that this was from Jaime. However, Tyrion, she muttered with a scowl when she read the name on the letter. A deliberate little mischief done by the imp to annoy his dear sister. Knowing that his name would sour her mood, he put his name on it while sending Jaime's letter. While he was going to deliver the one his brother had given him for their dear father himself when he went back to Castle Rock, he put a raven on duty to deliver the letter meant for Cersei. As for whether Cersei would even read the letter, mistaking it was from him, he wasn't worried. If anything, he was hoping that his dear sister would do just that and later regret not reading it. Alas, that was not his fortune. Breaking the wax seal, Cersei's emerald eyes scanned the page, her expression shifting from curiosity to anger. The goblet hit the floor with a loud clank, spilling red wine-like blood across the stone. That fool, she hissed, gripping the parchment so tightly it nearly tore. Pycelle cleared his throat. Your Grace, what news does the imp bring? Cersei's fingers curled around the letter as if strangling it. Out, my queen, I said out, all of you. Cersei shouted, almost startling the Grand Maester and the other servants. Not willing to be the target of this thirsty lioness's anger, all of them rushed out of the chamber immediately. Cersei's jaw clenched as she read the letter once again. What in the seven bloody hells was Jaime thinking? going beyond that bloody wall. She growled through clenched teeth. Besides the fact that she was genuinely worried about her brother now, there were two other emotions rampaging inside her. First was, of course, anger, and the other was even more primal in nature. Her mind telling her that she wouldn't be satisfied for a long time. That she'd have to suffer this loneliness alone. That she'd have no one to share her bed with now. All the mental defenses she had built up all this time to hold herself back until her brother came back shattered at this moment, and a wild, womanly urge started to cloud her mind. Fuck. Just as she was getting in the mood to destroy things around her to relieve her anger, a call came for her. Your Grace, Lord Hand is asking for you. A servant announced. The poor girl didn't have it in her to even step inside the room while saying this. Who knew if she would survive if she did against this hungry lioness? Hearing this name, her anger once again reached its zenith. My brother, Cersei began, but Ned Stark cut her off. You mean your lover? Cersei's green eyes flashed with anger, but she said nothing. Her silence was enough for Ned to know the answer. Ned sighed, his expression grim. I do not wish to hurt your children. They are innocent in this. But I will not keep this secret from Robert. He has a right to know the truth. Cersei lifted her chin. And what truth is that, Lord Stark? She asked coldly. That Joffrey, Tommen, and Myrcella are not his children, Ned said firmly. That they are Jaime's. Cersei's lips curled into a mocking smile. The Targaryens wed brother and sister for 300 years to keep their bloodline pure. Jaime and I are more than brother and sister. We share a womb, came into this world together, we belong together. Now you know the truth. What will you do with it? She asked almost challengingly, the anger from the earlier letter influencing her. Ned did not get impulsive at this response. He asked calmly, your firstborn, was that child Robert's? For the first time, Cersei's expression shifted at this sudden change in topic. Yes, she admitted. Ned's brows furrowed. What happened to him? What about him? Cersei's eyes narrowed. She didn't like what this man was insinuating. Did you kill him? Ned asked bluntly. The queen shot to her feet, fury burning in her gaze. How dare you? She spat. I could have your head for this. Ned met her glare, unshaken. Not afraid at all. After some time he finally gave up. Whatever it was, it didn't matter now. I am giving you a chance to leave, Ned said. When the king return, I'll tell him the truth. You must be gone by then, you and your children. I'll not have their blood in my hands. Flee as far as you can and take as many men you can. 'Cause wherever you go, Robert's wrath will follow you. Cersei laughed bitterly. And what about my wrath, Lord Stark? Cersei glared. You should have taken the throne for yourself when it was the chance. That was your biggest mistake. Ned's replied to this again with calm indifference. I have made many mistakes in my life, but that wasn't one of it. Oh, but it was. In the Games of Thrones, either you win or you die. Cersei replied and turned around. No longer in the mood to talk with this man. There was nothing left to walk, only war. She knew the game had begun. Chapter 37. The latter we stepped into one of the famous, well-established establishments of pleasure in King's Landing, the scent of perfume and wine thick in the air. The level of luxury seen here trumped even Winterfell to some degree, and that was an ancestral castle of one of the most ancient lines of lords in the Seven Kingdoms. I saw the man who owned this place sitting comfortably on a cushioned seat, a sly smile playing on his lips as he watched us approach. As we settled down, he offered refreshments, but I simply declined while giving a glance at Varys, who sat calmly beside me, hands folded in his lap, his expression unreadable. Ah, Lord Thor, Littlefinger greeted smoothly. To what do I owe the pleasure? I'm no lord, though some people do seem to call me that over time, I replied with a smile. Haha, believe me, my friend, the way you fought in the tourney, it would be a shame to the crown if you were not knighted, Baelish said while taking a sip of wine. Indeed, in fact, it seems the king has long wished to knight Esser Thor here. However, he refused the position. A terrible loss to the realm, Varys intervened. Ah, always knew there was something different about you. May I pry into the reason why anyone would reject being knighted by the king himself? Littlefinger asked leisurely. I understood that small talk was usually important before business took place, but those weren't my strong suit. Do you wish to hear the more politically correct one or the real reason? I don't see why not both. We have women, wine, and food. I see no better time to open our hearts and embrace life. Baelish smirked, clearly quite proud of his whorehouse. Very well. I don't wish to be knighted as I won't be staying here long. As soon as I find my way home, I'll sail the seas, leaving this land my farewell. Ah, I've heard this one before. Surely the answer that would please the high lords and ladies. More like not outright slap them in the face, and in turn, I'd find myself getting chased by a cavalry. Ha ha. What's the real one? The real one? Well, I just don't believe in knighthood. Nothing but restrictions, chains that would bind a warrior's blade. Vows to serve a realm, a king, or a lord who doesn't give a shit about you or your family's life. Knighthood might be real. If so, then I'm clearly not made for it. I looked at him with somber eyes, almost glaring. For a second, the room got tense before Baelish started to laugh. Soon joined by both me and Varys. Wise words. Never thought a warrior so extraordinary would be blessed with them. So, what brings you here to this humble establishment? I gave him a small smile, then looked at Varys. I thought it would be best if we spoke in private. The three of us. Littlefinger raised an eyebrow. Such secrecy. I'm intrigued. He gestured for the nearby women to leave. Once the room was empty, he leaned forward. Now, what is it you wish to discuss? Thor studied Baelish for a long moment before speaking. You remind me of someone I knew, he said, his voice calm but firm. Baelish chuckled. Oh, and who might that be? A trickster, Thor said simply. A man with silver words and a forked tongue, always spinning lies while pretending to be a friend. A man who thought himself untouchable. A man who thinks that chaos is his ladder. His blue eyes locked onto Baelish's. Must have been a very wise man. Baelish replied almost instantly, though I could see he had already started to think that this conversation wouldn't be very pleasant. If only he knew what a conversation was for an Asgardian. Wise. I can't say. But quite a lucky man, I assure you. Every time I wished to kill him, he survived. Do you know why? Must be fate. Only the seven know when a man should live and when he meets the stranger. Baelish's smile didn't falter, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Indeed, it was fate. You see, the man happened to be my brother. So he survived. You, on the other hand, Lord Baelish, are not my kin, I said as I reached into my cloak and pulled out a dagger. The Valyrian steel blade gleamed in the candlelight. I placed it on the table between us. Do you recognize this? Thor asked. Baelish barely glanced at the dagger before shaking his head. I'm afraid not. Thor tilted his head. Strange. You see, I just happened to acquire a little bird of my own. And he did quite a bit of chirping in my ears. I said with a smile while giving a glance at Varys. Baelish's expression remained controlled, but his fingers twitched slightly. You are turning out to be a man of many talents, then. But alas, I have to disappoint you. The dagger doesn't belong to me. Oh really? Such a shame. I thought I finally figured out who would send such a precious gift to someone like me. You certainly underestimate yourself, my lord. There are many in the realm who would provide gifts for a man of your caliber. You flatter me, however, I do believe that this one wasn't intended for me. I replied while looking at Baelish with keen eyes. Varys, who had remained silent until now, let out a quiet hum. A curious accusation, he mused. One that could lead to complications. Yes, indeed, Lord Varys. The man who gave me the gift ended up coming to a room that was originally supposed to be used by one of Ned Stark's daughters. It was only a last-minute change that Ned Stark graciously offered that room, saving me the trouble of finding one in the servants' quarters. Baelish's smile returned, though it was thinner now. If you have proof, Lord Thor, I would love to see it. Otherwise, I fear this is all just an unfortunate misunderstanding. Thor did not blink. Of course, my lord, it's a misunderstanding since you clearly failed to understand that I am not a man who needs proof to do anything. I do whatever, whenever, and however I wish to. The room went silent again. Let me guess, you wished to harm or kill one of the Stark daughters to create tension between the Starks and the crown, or just outright start a war between the North and the Lannisters. Tell me, Lord Baelish, how were you planning on climbing this ladder? Your excellence in the field is truly outstanding. Is that a threat, my lord? Baelish no longer had his smile on his face. Threat. Ha ha ha. No, no, I don't do threats. In fact, I particularly pride myself on being a man of action. And if I offended you in any way, then forgive me. I asked because I was truly intrigued. After all, I too agree with your assessment. What assessment? This, I said, and with lightning reflexes, threw the dagger at Baelish. I had practiced enough before coming here that the dagger found its way exactly to Baelish's forehead. It was sharp enough to dig a hole and completely insert itself there. For insurance that our esteemed treasurer didn't suffer much, I added lightning into the dagger for a clean cut. Everything happened within seconds, to the point that neither understood what had just happened. Thud. Only when Baelish's body fell did Varys finally recognize what had happened, his eyes wide. Yo. You. What did you do? But of course, sort chaos and climb the ladder. Just like Lord Baelish wished to do. Rejoice, Lord Varys. Now we are playing on my terms. The realm is officially at war. Chapter 38. 5 names, 5 lives. What did you do? Varys asked, holding his breath. Start a war. You see, I'm good at it. I could see my reply left him even more stunned. The room was deathly silent. Littlefinger's lifeless body slumped against the chair, his throat sliced clean. Blood pooled beneath him, staining the fine carpet. Varys sat frozen, his breath shallow. His fingers clenched tightly around the dagger hidden beneath his robes. His instinct screamed at him to run. Then, just as he tensed to move, my voice stopped him. You are a madman. Aren't we all? I shrugged. Do you think Ned Stark will protect you after what you've done? Varys said. He was more worried about his own life than the dead Petyr Baelish. Of course. The honorable fool can't protect himself and his kids, let alone me or this realm. I replied, a little frustration leaking out at Ned Stark's actions, even after repeatedly warning him from doing anything foolish. What do you want? Seeing that he wasn't dead yet, Varys asked hesitantly. War. I wish. For a war. 7 hells, you're mad. Varys, realizing that talking sense with this person would only cost him his life, bolted, ready to escape. However, just as he was very close to the gate, he heard me say this, Illyrio Mopatis. Varys stiffened. His eyes darted back to me, who now stared at him with an unsettling calm. Who is that? He didn't lose his composure and asked. Daenerys Targaryen. His grip on the dagger tightened. Viserys Targaryen. I have no recollection of how those names affect me. Varys still tried to play it cool. Of course you don't. After all of them are just chess pieces anyway. Expendable. But what about the other one? Only now did I slowly get up from my seat and make my way toward Varys, who had a pale face. What are you? Young Griff. Or should I say Aegon Targaryen? At this, Varys finally knew that he was cornered. His feet, which had been ready to flee, remained rooted in place. His mind raced. How does he know? I slowly stepped toward him. You see, Spider, I started, my voice low and serious, I know many things I shouldn't for someone who has nothing to do with this land. I'm not interested in that monstrosity of a throne the people of this land worship or in ruling here. I wish for none of it. Varys swallowed hard, forcing a weak smile. Then what do you want? He asked carefully. Exactly what you want, peace. But you see, for peace to exist, one must first pay an adequate price for it, or the peace would be meaningless, cheap, and definitely not long-lasting. Varys just stood there. The 7 knows what was going on in his bald head. I wish to take Ned Stark and his children back to the north. Unharmed and unscathed. I wish that the Queen's wrath, which would sooner or later fall on Ned Stark or the north if we succeed in reaching there, be blocked. I saw Varys acting like he didn't understand a thing, as if he knew nothing. Don't act like that, Lord Varys. I have enough confidence in your ability to presume you know what I'm talking about. His face stiffened. What do you want? 5 names, 5 lives. Life can only be paid for with life. You get what I mean, right? 5. Varys asked in confusion. Are you not counting your own name, my lord? I smiled. I saw his face morph, and then he asked, whose lives? Don't worry, I'm not asking you to kill anyone. I can do my own killing, as you can see. I glanced at the very dead body of Petyr Baelish. I'd rather have you save some lives instead. Whose lives? The Starks. No. Leave them for later. Before trying to protect others, we should think of ourselves first. So the first lives you're going to save are ours. I smiled, to which he looked baffled. Hurry. Sooner or later someone's going to show up. If they catch me, you know what will happen, right? By the seven, you're a devil. Varys cursed. For my enemies, I couldn't describe myself better. And then a wild goose chase started. I saw Varys trying to shut those whores' mouths and get us out of the brothel undetected. This was also a reason I asked for a meeting at night. Fewer eyes or ears to worry about. I thought of this plan after the faceless man brought the news about who really sent that assassin. For a killer, he would make a really good spy. Gotta give him that. I wished to kill Littlefinger on principle for what kind of man he was, but him being the one who sent the assassin just solidified that plan. The assassin might not have been for me, but ultimately, I found this dagger, so Baelish had to go. But just killing him wouldn't do. Even if somehow we hid this matter, it wouldn't solve much of anything for me. No, I intended to embrace Littlefinger's philosophy here this once. Chaos is a ladder, and I intend to climb it. As for Varys, well, he was the only one I had some dirt on. Especially young Griff. I only remembered this name from fanfictions. I wasn't even sure that guy was canon. Good for me. Soon, Varys used all of his channels to get us out. Then I asked him to follow me, which he did reluctantly. Where are you taking me? To meet a friend of mine. I just replied with a smile until we reached a house on the outskirts of the city. Knock knock. Who is it? Strongest Avenger. And then the gate opened, revealing the face of one Esser Hugh, the same one who used to be Lord Aaron's squire and should have been dead long ago. I would have introduced both of you, but you're a famous man, Lord Varys, and due to your trade, I presume you already know who this is. Varys nodded. What's going on? We are saving your life, friend. Lord Varys, this is the third person you have to save. Take him out of King's Landing and make sure he reaches the Vale unharmed. Varys looked like he was contemplating something before he finally nodded. Great, that only leaves two more names. Do yourself a favor and visit the castle dungeon one of these days. Name's Jochun Hagar. Tell him the god of thunder sends his regards. I smiled before showing the baffled man a way out. Seeing Varys looking like his entire world had shifted was amusing before I finally looked back at Hugh. Thor, what's going on? Hugh asked. After learning the queen had really sent people to kill him, he became more obedient. I'm sending you back to the Vale, my friend. You'll be safe there. Hearing this, he sighed in relief. But there is one more thing I wish you could do for me. For our friendship, I asked with a knowing smile, to which he looked at me with hesitation. That smile hadn't brought good news to him all this time. What? Here, go back to the Vale and tell Lisa Aaron, the Lannisters always pay their debts. She'll understand, I said as I tossed the bloody dagger to him. Now, I'm officially a player in this game. Chapter 39. Regrets of a King. By the time I returned to the Red Keep in morning after taking care of all the loose ends which could affect my plan, the castle was in chaos. Servants ran through the halls, their faces pale with fear. Guards stood tense at every corner, whispering amongst themselves. I didn't get it. Did they learn about Littlefinger's dead this early? Not possible. Varys set up that the entire thing would look like an assassin's work and his dead wouldn't reveal for few weeks if their contingencies worked. Stopping one of the passing guards, I asked. What's happening in the keep? The man swallowed. The king, my lord, he's been wounded. Wounded. My mind almost did a somersault at this. In the original story this happened most likely because Cersei arranged it. No clear evidence was given, but there could not be a greater coincidence that this incident happened almost immediately after Ned Stark confronted Cersei about. Damn you, Stark. By the time it hit me what might have happened, and surge of irritation rose in me. Before I could ask more, we heard hurried footsteps. Renly Baratheon came rushing toward us, his face grim. Thor, you're back, Renly said, barely stopping. Robert is hurt. He was brought in just hours ago. How? I asked with part irritation and part resentment. Though he wasn't a good king, far from it, but he was a good man. Sort of. At least he was a good drinking buddy. A hunting accident, Renly said quickly. At least, that's what they're calling it. Ned Stark and the others have been summoned. Robert is asking for you too. I'll be there. Nodded. Now only wishing that this was really, as Renly said, an accident. Because if not then I have to speed up my plans. Suddenly helping that wolf doesn't sound like a good idea to me. Maybe I should just let him die. He might be a good man, but he is causing too much trouble. Sigh. If not, his death would involve North in the upcoming battle, then I wouldn't have even bothered about coming here in the first place. If I wish to get to a more modern world with proper electricity and internet, then I can't let North involve in this pointless wars. North need to solely focus on what's beyond the wall. By the time I entered the king's chambers, I saw Robert lying in bed, his massive frame weakened by his wounds. His face was pale, his breaths labored. Ned Stark stood beside him, his expression grave. Robert's bleary eyes found Thor. A weak chuckle escaped his lips. Finally here, what took you so long? I almost died, bastard. Robert said with laughter. Clearly the fist-size hole on his stomach didn't put a damper on this man's mood. Apologies, I would have visited earlier, but after learning a wild pig did that to you, I need something to help me hold back my laughter. It wouldn't be good for a king's reputation after all. I shrugged. Those words were enough to left others gawking, even Cersei on the side, who I only noticed now looked baffled for few seconds what I said. After realizing they are supposed to get angry upon someone insult their king, those guard tense up. However, Robert laughter after that diffused the situation. That mouth of yours is sharper than a woman's. Lose those muscles and put a dress on and you'll earn mighty fine in a whorehouse. Robert shot back. Perhaps. Though I doubt it would be men's gold I'll be pocketing. So, to not get chased by a horde of broken furious husbands, I better spend my time on a battlefield. I smiled back. And after that Robert had no comeback. Grumbling, he just let the matter go and then asked me to come closer to him. Not sure why, but I did nonetheless. Before stranger takes me, let's fix at least few mistakes I should have done before. Someone give me a damn sword. He struggled to sit up but failed. Instead, he turned to Ned. But others just kept on looking at him like they were watching a panda trying to jump. I think I'm not dead yet for you cunts to not listen to your king. A sword, shouted Robert. A guard quickly stepped forward, placing a blade in Robert's hand. The king gripped it weakly, then looked at Thor. Kneel. Fuck you. Ha ha ha. Robert let out a tired laugh. Ah, you remind me of myself too much. Fine, have it your way. He raised the sword as best as he could. By the father I ask you to be just. By the mother I ask you to show mercy. By the warrior I ask you to show courage. By the maiden, I ask you to defend the weak. By the smith you will raise your steel for right, and by the crone you shall be bestowed by wisdom to guard the realm of men. Thor, by my will as king of the seven kingdoms, I name you Esser Thor, a knight of my realm. Robert had trouble doing this. I didn't want to be a knight, but seeing him struggling and genuinely believing that this would at least do some good in his long list of wrongs, I just stood still and let him do it. Just don't expect me to wear those white cloaks anytime soon, red suits me better. Haha. It does. Ned will see to anything you wish to have as per our bet. Robert said with a chuckle. I just nodded to this. There was a silence in the room after that until Robert finally opened his mouth like he was reminiscing something. Lightning strike, he said, taking everyone by surprise, but only Cersei, hearing these words, shuddered. Some few knew that my firstborn wasn't Joffrey but a stillborn, fewer knew that he wasn't actually a stillborn. Robert said, and this took me off guard. Who would have thought that Cersei wasn't lying when saying about her firstborn dying to Catelyn Stark in the show? Quite interesting. It was a lightning strike which took him. Like the heaven itself came. For my boy. A bolt straight from heaven rained down, curved enough to enter inside the open window, directed to the cradle he was placed. If I wasn't present there, I wouldn't have believed myself. Like the stranger himself was after that child's life. Robert said, for the first time I saw real pain in his eyes. For a man who got a hole in his stomach and could laugh knowing he got not much time. That is telling something. But more than anything, lightning strike. This sounds too close for comfort. I secretly glanced at Cersei on the side, and to my shock she had tears in her eyes. Can't say whether they were real or she learned crocodile no tear jutsu, but it looked real enough. Another golden head to my utter dismay, I thought when I first saw him. But his eyes, they were like a stag. Like yours. Robert said, making me stiff for a second. It's not like this possibility never crossed my mind. I have no recollection of the memories of this body I am in. I thought that I was in Thor's body, but I looked too young for that. Even if Thor really looked like that, it doesn't make sense why I have to play hard to get a power this body already possesses. System also said that it was a Thor template. Thus that means that I'm not in Thor's body. I'm not sure. The fact about his firstborn died by lightning strike doesn't help in this regard. Just forget it. Whatever it is, it's past and not even my past. Got nothing to do with it. I said to myself before focusing on Robert again. With you, I for the first time felt like a real father. Robert said with misty eyes, can't believe a man like him was showing tears in front of others. I wasn't a good father to Joffrey or Myrcella or Tommen. He trailed off. Someone really said the truth. Dying without regrets is better than keep on living with them. Did I have any regret before I died? Forget what he did. He said making me come out of my daze. He knows. But then I realized that one of the assassins was left behind. So those guards weren't from Joffrey or Queen but him. Others clearly didn't understand what was going on. Only Robert and me. He knew I understand and I knew what he was asking for. Can't say I wasn't planning on killing that little shit before I say my farewell to this cursed city, but now. I just nodded. You have my word. Just consider this as a friend's last request. Nothing like a father, but I did consider him a friend. It's not like if I wouldn't do it myself then that bastard would survive much long. The way his personality is, he'll be meeting the stranger sooner or later anyway. Good. Now all of you out. I have to talk to Ned. Robert shouted. Chapter 40. A raven arrived the wall. Sandor groaned as he stirred awake, his body aching and stiff. A sharp chill bit at his skin, and he shivered violently. He blinked, trying to gather his thoughts. At first, everything was a blur. There was nothing but darkness and cold. His eyes took time to adjust to the darkness of the place. Where in the seven hells am I? He tried to move around, but his body was too cold to move. He knew that the wall was supposed to be cold, but this was freezing. If he didn't do anything, then he'd freeze to death. Slowly, his memories returned. He had brought the Stark boy to the wall, planning to dump him there and leave. He had no interest in staying, only in finding the imp. But when he arrived, he found that Tyrion Lannister had already left for Castle Rock. Before he could even decide his next move, the black-cloaked bastards of the Night's Watch had seized him. They hadn't even let him speak. The first blow had come fast, and then darkness swallowed him. And now he was here. His breath came out in white puffs as he looked around. The cellar was dark and damp, the stone walls covered in frost. Damn those Starks. And damn the Night's Watch. He wrapped his arms around himself, cursing under his breath. If they planned to leave him here, he'd freeze to death before sunrise. Oi, he called out, his voice rough. Anyone there? Silence. He shouted again, but nothing. No response. Apparently, he was alone in the cellar. Meaning he can't even explain his side of the story. He gritted his teeth. Fuck. Get me out of here. Maybe due to cold or hunger he became even more agitated and shouted aloud. Maybe someone would hear him. He was right, someone did hear him. Just not someone he would wish to meet. Grew. A low, guttural growl echoed through the darkness. Sandor stiffened. His blood turned to ice. He knew that was no man, or animal he knew of. His heart started to beat faster just hearing that growl. He slowly turned his head, scanning in the shadows, but the darkness obstructed his view. The growl didn't appear again, but he didn't dare let out a quiet whistle, let alone call for help. 7. Seeing no way out, he could only wait. He might or might not freeze to death, but practically calling whatever made that horrible sound would definitely call the stranger. So he stayed there, doing nothing, waiting for someone to come to him naturally. But the cold was eating at him, numbing his limbs, making his mind sluggish. His vision blurred at the edges. He was close to passing out. Then, he heard it. A faint caw. His eyes snapped open. At first, he thought he was imagining things. His mind was playing tricks on him, trying to give him hope where there was none. But then he heard it again. Clear, sharp, real. A crow. Sandor forced himself to focus, searching the dark corners of the cellar. The dim torchlight barely illuminated anything, but he scanned the shadows carefully. There, it took a moment, but he finally spotted it. A raven, perched high on an old wooden beam. Finding it in the darkness had been as hard as spotting clean land in King's Landing, but he had done it. But the real reason he was able to spot it was because of what was in its mouth. The raven held something in its beak. A key. 7 Please, the key wasn't dark or he would never have spotted the bird. Sandor stared, unable to believe his own eyes. The bird flapped its wings, then dropped the key onto the cold stone floor near his cell door. He hesitated. This was surreal, a raven helping him escape. For a second he started to question his rational thinking until he cursed himself and stumbled forward, grabbing the key with frozen fingers. He jammed the key into the lock and turned it. Click! The door creaked open. For a moment, Sandor just stood there, stunned. It really opened. He turned back to the raven, and that's when he saw it. A third eye, staring straight at him. A shiver crawled up his spine. Bran. The boy had spoken of this. The three-eyed raven. Now he wondered, maybe staying in the cellar was safer. The bird let out another sharp cry, snapping Sandor out of his thoughts. It flapped its wings and pointed with its beak toward the farthest, darkest corner of the cellar. Sandor's gut twisted. That's where the growl came from. He just kept on staring at the darkness until the raven flew off toward where he was looking, only to land down and glare at him again. Calling for him again. Oh, he knew what it wanted. Following him. But why? Does this raven as a demon trying to lure him to his nest? Hound never believed in things like this, but he had to when a raven was helping him break out of prison. Sandor clenched his jaw. His instincts screamed at him to run, but something else, something deep inside him, made him take a step toward the shadows. Ever since that boy has talked to him, this has been in his mind. He didn't believe in those things, but after fighting with that hammer bastard, he had to say that his perspective was changing. That day he firsthand realized power which mortal flesh can't fight against. Then there was that champion of the storm god thing that boy told him. How could a book possibly written a century ago have the same hammer drawn on it that almost killed him? He had to know. And so, Sandor, with steady breath, took a step towards the darkness. King Robert Baratheon was dead. An inevitable outcome seeing how he used to fuck and drink, but to everyone's amazement, that wasn't the cause why he's gone. The news spread through the Red Keep like wildfire, and the castle was already shifting. From fake tears to genuine laughter, all in hushed silence. However, the news of the king's death wasn't as big of a deal as what happened after that. Who's gonna be the next king? Robert Baratheon's heir hasn't come of age yet. Robert's will had yet to be read and lay with Ned Stark. As for Ned Stark, as soon as he left the king's chamber after seeing his brother all but in blood die, Renly Baratheon caught up to him. We must strike tonight, Lord Stark, Renly said without preamble. Strike. At whom? Joffrey. We should take Joffrey under our custody. We have to take action now before the Queen acts. Ned frowned. There won't be any strike or blood in this castle, Renly. Tomorrow I'll read Robert's will and whatever he said will happen. And let Joffrey rule the 7 kingdoms. Ned, even you should know what kind of. Renly was saying, but Ned stopped him midway. I will not dishonor Robert's final wishes by shedding blood in his halls. Renly let out a frustrated breath. You are too honorable, Lord Stark. Honor won't save you when Cersei makes her move. I will do what is right, Ned said firmly. Renly studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Do as you wish. Without another word, he turned and left. Ned exhaled slowly. He knew what was coming. Cersei would not sit idle. The city would soon turn into a battlefield. He could not risk his daughters getting caught in it. Sansa and Arya can't stay here anymore.
Another tale fades into the silence. But here, in the fantasy audiobook library, stories never sleep. Subscribe, and return when your heart seeks adventure. We'll be waiting.